sorry for the public, we only got half of that. I moved a little too soon. Well, good morning. Thank you for coming. It is September 4th at 9 a.m. This is our Board of Commissioner meeting. Commissioner Boice, you have a report for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Officer line of duty deaths, military deaths, and firefighter fatalities through 2019. The number for the United States, and most of these, by the way, as you know, gunshot wounds or deadly force, the number is now 85. The number last year is 164. So 4 months we're down, so I reported last meeting. So if that can be good news, we hope that number freezes right there for the last 4 months of this year. Firefighter fatalities up to 33. Military deaths, USA, for this year is at 18, Mr. Chair. Thank you. If I may, I'd also like to, in a moment, have a moment of silence for Chuck Denny. He's a wonderful lawman and even a better citizen. He was my father's chief deputy back in the late 60s, early 70s. He eventually was elected sheriff in 1990. I told the management meeting group the other day that I was his campaign manager in those times. Not that he needed any help. He was very popular, very good for Curry County. He and his wife Sharon raised 3 beautiful children, wonderful family. Lisa, Steve, of course David Denny, our probation and parole officer. And it's just a sad time for Curry County. We hate to see Chuck go. You saw him walking, exercising every morning all through the early 2000s. And but we lost him, and again, Mr. Chair, would appreciate that moment of silence.
Absolutely.
Praying for Sharon and the family. Thank you again.
All right, do I have any amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I do have one quick one here. On the consent agenda, if I may.
Thanks. Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
Sheriff, Chair, I just have one quick question when the time comes, on who is included in that list, ARS. A little bit of an update there.
On which one, Commissioner?
Last one, item
okay.
6E.
6E, okay.
Please.
All right.
Won't take very long, I don't think.
Any other amendments?
I move that we approve the agenda as written.
As amended.
Well, not quite, but
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
with a wrinkle. How's that?
Second? I'll
Yeah.
second. Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boice,
Yes.
Chair Paasch.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, we're going to now have our public comments. Ms. Hunter?
I wanted to speak number 5 was the one we go down.
Oh, it's okay, we can wait till number 5, that's fine. David Barnes? Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. David Barnes. I've watching the news, reading the news. I'm reading a lot and hearing a lot about small communities and towns getting hit by ransomware. And I saw in the news last night that Jackson or Josephine had taken steps through their IT department to prevent this from happening to them, to be prepared if it does happen to them. And I was just wondering, I know we don't have an IT department anymore. I was just wondering if we've done anything or taken any steps to protect ourselves.
At this time, we have not, but we are currently working with Coos Curry Electric's people and their IT department to upgrade our department, and we'll be bringing some stuff to the board in the next month or so.
Okay.
To upgrade that, yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Clausen? Good morning.
Morning.
Mr. Chair, point of order, I'm afraid he's going to throw horseshoes at us.
Good morning. If I'm in front of the board, it has to have something to do with the fair. As you know, I'm involved with gardening and agriculture in the county quite extensively. In doing that, I did some research and found in the library 2 history books, one for the Coos County agricultural history and one for Curry County. Curry County was done by our own Walt Schroeder. He did a heck of a job, okay? However, I was looking at the Coos County one to find out some things about the agriculture, and I stumbled onto the chapter regarding the fair, which used to be the Coos Curry County Fair, when we only had one fair, and that was held up in Coos County. Well, what I noticed was that there were so many things that adults could participate in at the fair. Now, as an exhibitor, as a contestant in the truck driving, in the bull riding, that's things that as a fair goer you can do. But as you know, other than that, you can go look at exhibits. You can take a ride on a carnival ride, or you can sit in the stands and watch something. But what is there to actually do? Okay? Well, it turns out, back in the day, that there was quite a bit of participation. We used to have, in the combined county fair, boxing matches, wrestling matches, baseball games, and one I'm sure Commissioner Paasch will appreciate, we used to have horse racing. But the other one is horseshoes. And so last month when I spoke to you, I used a quote showing you a picture of the ribbon cutting ceremony and saying a picture's worth 1,000 words. Today, I think I should use something from William Shakespeare, beware of Greeks bearing gifts. This is a complete horseshoe and ring for adults and ring toss for the children. It was donated by Linez and Stephen Zentz, and we are trying to encourage the commissioners to really give us some backing to get this into the fair next year as a competition that anyone can sign up for. We're thinking of doing it in teams of 2, but that's up to fair management and you guys. Anyway, that's that. The other thing, again on the fair, it's that time of year where we start putting out notice for applications to fill different board positions. This year, there's going to be, at the end of this year, there's going to be 3 fair board positions open. I'm pretty familiar with 2 of the fair board members and the amount of work they do. David Haney and Bob Shivanti. They're, I guess that's me, cooking at the meals, so they do so much. I'm wondering if we really need to take a good look this year and see if we can get some new blood in. We're all getting older, but it would sure be nice if we at least have some back and forth about what we expect of our fair board members. What you see in the memorandum of understanding between the fair board and the Board of Commissioners doesn't seem to be the same as what's actually happening. Everybody says, all the fair board members say, take it to Nikki, go talk to Nikki. My question is, how much more can we ask one person to do? Nikki needs some help, okay? She has to tell us what kind of help she needs, but we've got to be ready to deliver. And if we can start with suggesting items like horseshoe competition, let it be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we might want to,
Commissioner Boice, will you take care of the,
yes, sir.
okay.
Thanks for that wonderful opportunity. I wasn't aware that there was 3 positions coming open, so we might want to start now and, advertise, promote that these spots are open and start working to get them filled. And as you know, the Coos and the Curry County Fair both at the same time, and the Delnor Fair the next week. So someday hopefully they can be, the Coos and Curry schedule can be put together a different week. And so, yeah, thanks for that time.
Thanks. All right, next we have recognition of a 5-year service award, Summer Matteson, Ms. Schmelzer.
Come on up, Summer.
It's only been 5 years? Seems like so much longer.
So Summer started out in the Board of Commissioners office 5 years ago as an economic development assistant. She then took some time in the juvenile department, and she came back to the Board of Commissioners as the economic development coordinator. She's a real example of how if you continue to work and improve yourself, you can have advancement here. She's done an excellent job. I'm really proud of her, not for just the work that she has done with the county, but the time she spends after hours just helping the community. She's always volunteering and arranging things for the schools, for the fires, etc. She's really a great example of a Curry County employee, and we're very proud of her. So thank you, Summer.
Thanks. I'm so excited.
Speech.
I have the most rewarding job in the greatest county for the most incredible citizens and coworkers, and so for that I'm really grateful. That's all I'll say, because I'll cry. Thanks.
Thank you, Summer.
Summer. Next, we have a recognition of 20 years of service for Michael Lang. Sheriff Ward.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Today, we are here to give honor to Mike Lang, who is a employee with the Curry County Sheriff's Office. Mike started his career back in 1999. He worked as a work crew supervisor when they over there were you're talking about the new Justice Building just across the street. And then after that, he went to work as a coordinator for the work crew, and he built the place down in the basement of the courthouse, and that's where we had our work crew. And he did that for about a year, and then in 2005 he switched and we made him a corrections deputy, and so he was a corrections deputy for about 8 years, I believe. And from there, in 2013, switched over to parole and probation, where he works today, and he supervises a huge caseload, a lot of sex offenders and P&P clients. So he's been here for 20 years, and he's not only just a good employee, a great employee, but he's a good friend of mine, and we've done a lot of things together, and I'm pretty proud to be able to work beside him. So, Mike. I know there's a
20 years.
pin here. So there it is. And thank you. Appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you very much.
So go ahead and give a speech. And keep it down. Keep it to about 3
Yeah,
minutes.
you don't have to worry about too much of a speech, but I appreciate it. I've been very thankful to be able to have a job in this county for 20 years and raise a family, and it's been great. So thank you very much.
I would just thank you very much. Back at you. I'm just going to ask the sheriff, by the way, didn't Chuck Denny hire you a long time ago?
Yeah, back in 1990, November 1990, Chuck gave me my first start. He was appointed sheriff in 1989 when Bob Babb, from him. And then he ran 2 terms, and I think it was in 1998, actually, he retired. So gave me my start, did a lot of golfing with him. He's a great friend of mine, and we're going to miss him.
Bob Babb was a police chief of Brookings for a long time, after Bud Cross, I
Right.
think, yeah. Who hired Mr. Lang, do you remember?
I think
Actually, Sheriff Denny was
Sheriff Denny.
leaving when I came on, and Sheriff
Wow.
Owens was just coming on board.
Thank you again.
Mr. Lang, thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
Next, we have 5C Proclamation Suicide Prevention Month. Ms. Schmelzer?
Yes, Gordon Clay, who is our suicide prevention advocate
Gordon
in the
Clay.
county, did remind us that it is Suicide Prevention Month this month. So I'm asking the board to pass a proclamation. It is before you, so if you want to read that, Commissioner.
Yes, I will.
This proclamation also asks that a council be formed to help address suicide prevention in the county. So if the proclamation is read and successful, and if the board agrees, we will come back at the next meeting with with an order to put together a council to start addressing suicide prevention on a grander scale in the county, involving different partnerships such as the Sheriff's Office perhaps, and CCH and some of the other organizations.
So this is a proclamation, September for Suicide Prevention Month. Whereas suicides in the United States have increased 4.7% from 2016 to 2017. Oregon is the 26th largest state, yet our suicide rate is 14th highest in the nation, up 6.4%. The suicide is the second leading cause of death for our 10 to 34-year-olds, which is up 8.4%. 1/5 of those who kill themselves are veterans. And whereas Curry County has one of the highest per capita veteran suicide rates in the nation, and whereas research indicates that almost half of all suicides happen within 10 minutes of a person's first thought of taking their life. Wow, I didn't know that. And whereas public awareness of the warning signs and the networks available for at-risk individuals are essential to continue lowering the rates of suicide in Curry County, and can make a difference and help break the silence and stigma associated with asking for help or talking about suicide. And now, therefore, the Curry County Board of Commissioners hereby encourages all citizens to be aware of the warning signs of suicide and know what they can do to help. Be it further proclaimed that September is Suicide Prevention Month, and a Curry County Suicide Prevention Council shall be established. This 4th day of September 2019, the Curry Board of Commissioners.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may add.
Commissioner Boice.
Thank you. Excellent work. In that was referenced warning signs. Gordon Clay has been trying to educate Curry County along with other veteran supporters for a long time. And from a friend in Brookings, I received this email today. I just want to read part of it, but it will support what I'm hoping we will agree on the proclamation. First, I want to say back in January, the hunters reminded us, here's the crisis line. I'm going to have some extra of the proclamation and this over on the table for public awareness and connection there. But here's what I want to read. This is from Terry Haynes from Medford. And quickly, friends, family, and fellow veterans, I sent the attached document out at the end of July, which explains much about the problem of veteran suicide. There is an event coming up September 14th to bring the issue of veteran suicide to the forefront. It is a difficult subject to think about or discuss, but I can assure you it's far more difficult to deal with when and if it happens. And you find yourself asking the question after the fact, what could I have done? Between the day I first sent this out until September 14th, almost 1,100 veterans will have taken their lives. We need your help. I pray that you can do at least one of the following. Come to the Veterans Park next to Medford National Guard Armory at 1 o'clock on the 14th of September to hear from a mental health professional what are many of the signs. You just referenced again warning signs in our proclamations. I'm certainly not well educated in that, but need to be. If someone is contemplating suicide, that is something you can do ahead of time that may prevent a suicide. Number two, if you do not live near Medford or are already engaged in something else on that date and time, please contribute at least $22 to help us support charities that are doing something about this matter. You can mail a check, and I'll have that reference, give that to staff. Jesuit. Number three, if you are unavailable on the 14th to come, and whether you donate or not, but feel that this subject is too important to just ignore, perhaps forward this message. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you again, Ms. Schmelzer, for working extensively on this.
I'd like to hear from Mr. Clay about this, if you would, sir. You've got a speaker slip in for the proclamation, and I also appreciate all of your work, not only with suicides, but with veteran suicides as well. If you would pull that other mic up to you, the taller one. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Very good.
Gordon Clay, Brookings, Oregon. I don't have a written speech today. It's more a thank you and an appreciation from regarding if the proclamation is approved. It's been a long time that we have sort of floundered in this county, and I wanted to add a statistic that comes from the CDC about Oregon. Oregon leading cause of death for 15 to 24-year-olds, 25 to 34-year-olds, 35 to 44-year-olds, 45 to 54-year-olds is suicide. And this is what the CDC produced on when they broke down and they took cancer, had like 12 different cancers in it, and so it packs it up and says cancer is this big thing. When you break it down and look at actual cause, whether it's prostate cancer, colon cancer, etc., suicide for these 4 age groups in Oregon is #1 in all of those 4 categories. We are way above, well, as that stated, Oregon is 14th in the nation. We're the 26th largest state in the nation. We're also the 26th largest county, and we're 11th in suicides. You look at California, they're 47th in suicides. Now, Northern California is very problematic, but California overall isn't. And what broke in the press today, and Matt has some papers up here, it broke in 5 papers in Coos, Curry, and Del Norte County, and will break in 1 tomorrow and 3 on Saturday, is this incredible 16-page document, and I invite you all to find the suicide warning signs in here, learn them. We've got a lot of information on here, how to take a simple 1-hour course called QPR online, costs $30. We're not selling it, it's just available, simply available to people, that they can really get skilled in this, because we're floundering on getting good behavioral health people here, and enough of them. And while that's going on, we need to step up as individual citizens and learn these things, because 80% of kids who die by suicide, their parents had no clue until they looked on their cell phones and saw how distressed they were. So it's something that I think we as individuals in this county and Coos and Del Norte County need to take the bull by the horns, and let's say we can stop this, but we got to do it. We can't wait around for everybody else to do it. So I want to thank you in advance, hoping that you pass the proclamation.
Thank you, sir. And I like your shirt. It says, "Are you okay?" And that's basically opens a conversation to someone that you think might have suicide tendencies, to ask them, "Are you okay?" And it just opens that conversation. So I appreciate that shirt.
Actually, if I might add one thing, I originally started this on the wallet cards, and a month after I started it, I saw the semicolon campaign. I've shifted to that. As of today, 147 locations in Curry and Del Norte County have these as the handout cards. And I'll get the rest of them today and Port Orford early next week.
Great.
So it really is different. Rather than handing them a semicolon card and they're, somebody in crisis and they don't understand what the semicolon are, You hand them this card and say, "Are you okay?" And it's okay to say you're not okay.
Thank you,
Thanks.
sir.
Mr. Clay, you served in the Army, right?
I did.
Thank you for your sacrifice and service. Mr. Chair, if I may, my grandson, Court, my oldest grandson, just enlisted in the Army. Very proud.
Good.
So, he'll be calling you, right?
Connie Hunter.
I'm Connie Hunter, and I am a proud citizen of South Curry County. Thank you for addressing this topic today and the consideration of a proclamation and a suicide council is, we've come a long way, let's just put it that way. The document that I'm going to share with you, this document represents the verbal opinion that I want to share at the Board of Commissioners, and I shared this with Gordon in advance. Although I understand that Curry County Suicide Prevention Council will focus on the community at large, I will advocate in the short term for more support for veterans and their families. And we lost a veteran to suicide over the weekend, I am sorry to say. And I was visiting my nephew in Sweet Home because he had just lost, he served in 2 branches of the military, and 3 service members have committed suicide that he has served with. So I went to spend time with him in Sweet Home. And when I got home, I found out about the suicide of a veteran locally. There are holes in the safety net that exist. The VA continuum of care is more of a patchwork, leaving holes in the safety net that local providers have not been able to connect with, not for lack of trying. We lost a veteran to suicide in the last week. I request this board that there be a request of the VA Roseburg Director Keith Allen to have a thorough inquiry regarding identifying the holes in the VA safety net in the rural clinic on Railroad Street. There is a story that needs to be told and system analysis needs to be made. People talk to me, people tell me things I don't want to hear and know, because sometimes it's not only hard, but it's also sometimes confidential. So I can't speak to all the issues that I wish that I could. But we need to take a good hard look at where the holes are in the VA continuum of care. Because I promise you, our complex issues for our older veterans are much more time consuming per individual than the VA allows of their staff member. In other words, there's only so much time that can be dedicated to a particular veteran and their problems. There are big issues in the area of not having case management. Now, I know Curry Community Health has just worked to have 11 community health workers, and that might be part of the solution. But if we don't sit down and call the VA to task to say we need more staffing, or if you're not going to provide it, please let us know so we can fill those gaps in care. Thank you for your time. I appreciate all the work that Gordon has done. We've been working together a long time, and I'm very, very proud of his ability to stay with it.
Thank you, Ms. So do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the proclamation for Suicide Prevention Month.
Proudly second, Mr. Chair.
Is there any further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boice,
Aye.
Chair Paasch.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, next we have 6, the consent agenda. Before I read them, Mr. Boice, Commissioner Boice, you had a question on E, Intergovernmental Agreement for Curry County Dispatch Services, fiscal year 1920 with the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Chair Paasch. Sheriff, while you're here, just quick question. Our information here says IGAs on current ARS. So this is what we're supporting today, right? Which is City of Port Orford, City of Gold Beach, Calor Ambulance, Cedar Valley North Bank Fire Department, Overfire, Pistol River Fire, and Sixes Fire. So we're collectively approving this today, right?
Yes, and it's also Pistol Fire, Agnes Fire. I don't know if you said those. And then the dispatch for Gold Beach Police Department, Port Orford Police Department, CalORS, and U.S. Forest Service. I don't know if you have one for the U.S. Forest Service there, but they're on a fiscal or calendar year, not a fiscal year. So, yeah, this is for our annual dispatch services. We have a contract that we sent out, and we sent it out probably a month and a half ago, hoping that we'd get all of them back, and I think we got all of them back, except for maybe one or two from the fire departments, but they all have paid. So, and just want to reiterate a little bit. When I say the fire departments, the rural fire departments, it's only $100 for the entire year for having our full dispatch services. We don't charge fire departments other than just a basic rate, flat rate.
So we're basically approving all 11 today.
Yes.
Great. And no controversy, no delays. It
No
looks like everything's
controversy.
been pretty smooth.
There's no
compared to last year.
controversies. In fact, you know, we've worked so well with Gold Beach in the last couple of years. Things have changed, the relationships have changed, and we have a great working relationship with their city administrator as well. We did increase our rates a little bit this year because it's never been increased from the call rate of $7.50 per call. We never have added in the extra costs that come along with dispatch services as far as the raises, union raises and things like that. So it went up to, like, I think $10.35 per call. There was no questions about it. They're still going to save a little bit of money. They budget probably a little bit more than what they need to, but no controversy.
Well, congratulations on all of that, the effectiveness of it, and I'm gonna add leadership. This is really good news. So is there anything else we can do? I guess too, I had a question. At some point, I wonder if you might want to consider a 2-year. Have you've probably been there,
Well,
just to save you time and money. And
well, the thing about the 2 years, we'd have to add in the cost of doing business. It's usually about a 3% increase, and we've never done that until this year. So we kind of had to do a little bit of a catch-up, and that's why the increase in the price of the dispatch services.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
I wanted to also mention last night, when we're talking about these fire departments, we had a call out of a young man that called in with a little bit of service on his phone, lost service, but he called 911, said he was up Abe's Creek. He fell off a bluff, and he had broken his leg, and it was after dark. So search and rescue was called out. I went out as well, and it took us to about 1 o'clock in the morning to get him out. But the North Bank Cedar Valley Fire Department came out and assisted us with that. If you know where Abe's Creek is, it's just up before you get to Miller Ranch up on the North Bank of Rogue River. Anyway, it was about a mile in past lock gates, and apparently he's looking for mushrooms or something, but he was able to make a phone call, and then the phone died, but we kind of had an area, so we went up, heard the within probably about half hour after we got there, and making voice calls, and finally heard him, and then search and rescue made their way into him, down into a creek bed, put an air splint on his leg, and packed him out. So it took us about 1 o'clock this morning to get him out.
Wow. That's a miracle.
That's
he got out on the cell.
collaboration with the relationships that we've built with the local agencies, that they come out and help it. You just have to ask.
Thanks, Sheriff. Appreciate it. All right, so we're going to stay with number 6, consent agenda. A is approving a deputy code enforcement officer job description, community development. B, approve Curry Community Health Amendment to Curry Public Health IGA Intergovernmental Agreement 159808. C is to approve the repealing order of number 20470 of Parks. D, order retaining land parcels for future evaluation as county park and recreation facilities parks. And E, the IGA Intergovernmental Agency for Curry County Dispatch Services for fiscal year 1920 in the Sheriff's Office. Do I have a motion?
So move, Mr. Chair, improve the consent agenda as you just outlined there.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boice.
Yes?
Chair Paasch.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, moving on to 7, which is discussion and action items. I just wanted to touch again because last week at the Brookings meeting, we had such a day that I never got back to the offices to get my information, and there were some additional things that I wanted to make sure were delivered to the public, and that is the loan forgiveness for disabled vets that President Trump has wiped out. This is an article from August 22nd. President Trump said in Louisville, Kentucky on Wednesday that he would wipe out every penny of student loan debt held by disabled veterans. An event organized by a veterans group, AM Vets, Trump signed the memo directing the Education Department to automatically discharge federal student loans held by veterans who qualify as permanently disabled. Democratic lawmakers and state lawmakers had all urged him and the Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, for months to take that step. DeVos and Acting Veterans Secretary Robert Wilkie announced that the agencies would begin identifying and reaching out to those veterans who may qualify, and since that time, more than 22,000 borrowers have received a total of $650 million in loan forgiveness. The article goes on, but basically what I wanted to make sure everyone understood is if you are a disabled veteran in Curry County, you can apply if they have not already reached out to you, because they say they are reaching out, but as we know, our government sometimes doesn't get to everyone. So if you feel you are a disabled veteran in Curry County, this is a document that the president has already signed relieving your school debt, and it will be, from what I understand, through this article, completely forgiven. And if anyone would like to look this up, it was dated August 22nd, 2019. The name of it was Faster Loan Forgiveness for Disabled Vets by Andrew Craigbaum. And I don't have a hyperlink on here, but you can probably Google that. And that's basically the information that I wanted to give on that. Commissioner Gold.
I just want to say that by relieving this huge amount of debt, and it is a huge amount in most cases, this will relieve the stress level of a lot of those vets and hopefully help with the suicide rate.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing that and putting out that effort.
Next, we're going to have 7B is a discussion and action item on the road fund and funding community projects. Basically, what I wanted to bring up on this is, you know, we have a road fund, and I understand, and I've been part of discussions in this board and how careful we need to be with that road fund. And there was a lot of work that went into this fund to establish it, and there's a lot of sacrifice that went into this fund to grow it. So I think it is in our best interest to make sure what we do with it is well investigated and that money is well spent. One of the things that we've done this year, I think, and Mr. Christensen, our roadmaster, and I have worked to replace some of the equipment. And if you would like at this time, since we're going to talk about this, step up and talk about the equipment sale we just had a little bit. And then I'll expound a little further, and you can stay at the podium if you'd like to as we talk about the road fund.
Good morning, Commissioners. Roadmaster Richard Christensen. Yes, we just sold 20 pieces of equipment and vehicles, from little generators to big excavators, pickup trucks, and cars. And we, it was just under $102,000 in total sales. I was expecting maybe 50,000. Things came in a lot higher than we had projected. The trade-in value on 2 of the pieces of equipment we sold, a backhoe and a excavator, was about $30,000. We received about $65,000 for those 2 pieces of equipment. So that was pretty exciting news. And So it's part of our equipment replacement program and vehicles for the road department, which is about $500,000 to $600,000 a year program for the next 5 to 6 years because of all the sacrifices we made to save $35 million for the road fund.
I have a question. You and I spoke yesterday, and if you would reiterate to the board and the public, you said that, you know, we just invested a lot of money in a chip spreader. And you sold our old chip spreader, which was 40 years old, as I recall.
40 years old.
And tell us what that sold for, that wonderful piece of nostalgic equipment that we had.
That piece of equipment, a scrap man came in and gave us $300.
Ooh.
And the new piece of equipment was $324,000. We wore that piece of equipment completely out.
That lets you know how hard and how end of life some of our equipment is, that it went up for public auction, and the high bid of a machine that cost several $100,000 sold for $300 as junk. So
Painful.
So, yeah, I just talk about the road fund a little bit. In 30 years ago, 1988, the road department started this fund because we were all told that forest funds were going to end, and we used to receive about $3.5 million a year in forest funds. This last year, we received $100,000, and and this money was saved for road use only, but then state law changed where it could be used for sheriff use as well, but it had to be paid back. But then that changed where it didn't have to be paid back, and when I first started here, we had loaned out $4.25 million. Since I've been here a year and a half, we loaned out, or we gave another about $1.7 million to the sheriff's department. So about $6 million has gone to the sheriff's department out of the road fund to date. That never going to be replaced, and we never going to have the money to replace these monies either, because unless forest funds return, which doesn't seem like it's ever going to happen, or another additional funding source is ever found, these monies will never come back. So once they're spent, they're gone. And I just like to talk a little bit about the last year, what the road department did with these funds. And our team went out and secured a $3 million grant to pave 7 miles of Jerry's Flat Road. That grant is going to cost us $325,000. So we're getting like 100% return on our money, and that's the power of the road fund. Even though the road department, the sheriff's department, and also admin departments, we've given out millions of dollars for these departments. We still have $31 million in that fund. That's because the revenue generating power of that fund. And it's in a very secure place where if we were ever to have an emergency or Huskanagin slide or something to that effect, that money could be reached out and obtained right away, so we can move forward with these repairs in a timely manner, because it's going to take a long time for FEMA to come in and possibly reimburse it if it is a FEMA event. And they're only going to reimburse it at 75%. So if it's a $10 million project, we're going to be out $2.5 million. So the thing is the road fund, its intended purpose was to maintain 230 miles of roads with all our bridges, all our rails, guardrails, all our stop signs, traffic control, and all that stuff is a $500 million asset. And that $500 million asset takes at minimum $6 million a year for us to maintain, with paving and chip seals and maintaining ditches, cleaning storm drains. And without the road fund, we only obtain currently from gas tax, the federal government, and forest funds about $2.3 million a year. We need to take $4 million a year out of the road fund from here on out, unless other funds are obtained or found. And so if we're looking at loaning out the road fund, we have to make it very restrictive in where we can recoup our money as we need it, because at the current pace we're taking these funds, we're going to be out of money in 7 years. So that's all I wanted to say. Just give you like a real quick picture. I didn't have much time to work on this presentation, but I just wanted you to think about that.
Commissioner Boice?
Well, very good, and I think you're being an exceptional steward. I appreciate that. You mentioned FEMA. That really interests me, because something that's happening on the East Coast right now with the hurricane season is that through the state emergency declaration process system, the money's going to the states, and then it's not coming back to the counties nearly as fast as it should. So there's some real complaints there. The federal government basically is doing their job, but the holdup is with the state. I'm not saying that that's happening in the state of Oregon, but it is a good issue that you raise, that sometimes that money doesn't come for a long time, and then 75% of it. So it does become somewhat of, or can become somewhat of a bottleneck. And so you may see down the road where FEMA does deal directly with the counties, at least on a partial basis.
And we are working directly with FEMA right now on the February storm event and the April storm event, and things are coming together. But it is, those funds are highly restrictive, and they come with a lot of red tape, so, which causes problems, because environmental, it doubles down on environmental and everything that you have to be in compliance with in permitting. So to get all that permitting done and to get your repair done, it's not a timely matter. And I'm running into that right now with some of our projects that are in the rivers. And there's an in-water work period where that work needs to be done in the next month or two. Or we have to wait till next year, September, October. And these repairs need to be made now, before, in case we have high water again this year and heavy rains, these erosions could take out our roads and our bridges. And so, but you know, we have a $500,000 up on $500,000 project we project up on Gardner Ridge, and that's going to take time for the funding, the engineering, and of that, if it is $500,000, it ends up being, after it's contracted out, FEMA's only going to give us 75%. It's going to cost us $125,000 for that project. So the road fund, without our roads, maintaining our roads are going to fall apart. We're not going to be able to repair, and they're going to fall into disrepair. And to replace them, it's going to cost us $500 million if we don't keep putting that $6 million a year in. And so, so I just want to really let you know what the road department feels.
Commissioner Gold?
When I saw this emergency item on the agenda about road fund loans, I took it upon myself to go back and read the ordinance that we put in place after HB 3435. And there were some pretty good guidelines in that ordinance. We were supposed to, they have to put in an application giving their financial information and so forth, and then it's reviewed by a team of 3 people, our council, treasurer, and county accountant, and manager. I guess that's 4. There has to be a public hearing, and then a decision made by BOC in order to loan those funds. So it's not like we should be a candy store just giving candy out to kids or whatever just because they're crying. So
I understand that, and I also understand that's how it started with the sheriff's department. It was a loan, then it was forgiven, and that's how things start. And so, for instance, so if we loan the money to another agency and they are unable to pay, what are we going to do? And so I guess I talked with David Brock Smith about that at our last council meeting. He mentions, well, we collect all the taxes and we give those to those agencies, and we could take right off the top of that and take that money. Well, what if that bankrupts that agency? And are we going to do that, or are we going to forgive it? And so the thing is we just see money going out the window faster than it's coming in. And admin fees keep going up. I believe traditionally they were on a little over 100,000. Last few years they were, 450,000. This year they're 550,000. They went up $100,000 a year, and so, admin fees take care of 6 departments. They take care of the commissioners, the board, the office, county council, finance department, HR, our IT. And if that $500,000 is not there coming out of the road fund, which is the biggest source of funding, I believe, for all 6 of those departments, we lose those departments. So not only do we lose our roads, we lose the road department, we lose all those 6 departments, and now we're not gonna have money to give the sheriff anymore either. So the thing is that we just need to be real careful and have a good plan.
Well, I want to say that I think we need to be very good stewards of the road fund, and I think this board is looking to continue that process. I personally don't think loaning the road fund out for any, even a minimal risk is a smart avenue to take. I think that road fund needs to be protected, and unless, like you said, an agency were to come to us without guaranteed funding on that, return of that money, I would have a hard time looking at that. The reason that I asked for this to be brought before the board today, let's get this out in the open now, and then we'll take a break. We can all chew on it, and I'm sure we'll all have questions after, is our emergency room down in Brookings. As we've learned, the emergency room may take up to 2 years to be funded, but that money is there. The state is telling us that we are going to have the funding for that, and once that language, which is still unclear, becomes clear, that how the state is going to fund it, when they're going to fund it, and is it going to be done in stages or a lump sum, that is a source that I think is a viable way to borrow from the road fund, knowing that the state, if they will allow it to be, we still got to get the language on that if the hospital can even borrow from some outside entity and then the state repays that entity, if we can even legally do that. So this is still in the beginning stages, but if it were to happen, this is an issue that we could take up that could delay the emergency room in Brookings for years. That could, if we were to fund that, it gets the emergency room in Brookings open much sooner. The board would have to meet the goals of the intended thing here that the commissioners did, and we would also gain money from that, which is part of our job as well, by charging an interest rate far above what we're currently getting through the treasurer's office of that money. So it would be a win-win for the county, I believe, and the road fund, because it would create more finance, income for the road fund, because of the higher interest rate that the county would receive. It would be guaranteed money because the state would, if it is legal, replace that money back into the road fund through the state, and it would benefit the citizens of the county by getting the emergency room open at a much quicker rate than possibly up to 2 years. I'm not saying that in conversations with the hospital that their board would require the entire amount. They may want to do a floating loan where they only need $750,000 to get the emergency room actually open, but they need the guarantee of the other $1.25 million for payroll and whatever else they need. So they would only need to borrow what they need at certain points, and then if they need additional money down the road up to $2 million, that's what they would be looking to do. And I think the benefit for this county to get that emergency room open down there it far outweighs the 0.1%, in my opinion, risk that that this county would take of losing that money from the road fund.
I totally respect that, and I respect any decision that the Board of Commissioners make, and I'm just trying to let you know what the road department thinks and where we're at. Excuse me, I lost my train of thought, but
Commissioner Boice had a question.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I want to listen to what you had to say again. I think that is so important to this county. And I could be wrong on this, but I think a close second is the Port of Brookings that's trying to make a comeback from some real issues over time. And if, as you said, they had the ability to pay that back and it was on a reasonable promise. We have a system right now on loaning to the taxing districts, goes back 2 years, a little over 2 years. House Bill 3435 was passed by the 17 legislative, whatever year it was. Anyway, and the county developed a system what the taxing district would have to comply with in order to apply for that loan. And it is something I think we need to revisit. It's something that I was adverse to because it is so complicated. No responsible taxing district, in my view, would take the time, the tremendous amount of time to go through that. So I would like to go back to that. One quick question when the time is right. And it has to do with the auction. You mentioned $100,000.
Correct.
And that, I assume, got rid of some cars we didn't need or don't need?
Yeah, we downsized the vehicles and equipment from the motor pool and from the road department.
I've kind of stayed out of that because I want to congratulate you both. That whatever you got is just good management, and I've waited almost 3 years to see that happen, so way to go. Thank you.
Well, why don't we do this? It is 4 minutes to the hour, 3 minutes to the hour. Why don't we take our 10 o'clock break now? We'll reconvene in 10 minutes, and we'll continue on with this topic. We're in recess.
Yours is the next big idea, and you need the right place to fine-tune it, build it, launch it. If you're only your best when you can play more than you work, if inspiration comes from the outside, you belong in Curry County. The westernmost point of the land you love, and the edge between familiar and uncharted. Break the pattern. Be where the airports are as close as the beaches, and industry and recreation never cease to amaze. Dock, dive, and dine in a single day, and never lose your connection. This is the threshold of the West. Live where you can do you, and do it well, at the farthest point from ordinary. Curry County, living on the edge.
One of the things I really appreciate about our entire region is that we embrace who we are, and I think that's what unifies us. Once the timber and fishing industries collapsed, it took us a long time to get back on our feet. People didn't quite grasp the idea that once these jobs left, they weren't going to get other family wage jobs, and it crippled us.
Things were getting really dire. So we just saw that this was an opportunity to maybe look at that public land a little differently and how it could bring more dollars into our region.
The Wild Rivers Coast is so unique because there are more wild and scenic rivers here than anywhere else in the lower 48 states. The scenic beauty is just amazing. There's so many different places to go, from the national forest down to the protected ocean, and it's just a really special place.
I guess I didn't really know how special it was, though, until I moved away to Portland and came back and saw all the potential here.
We're uncrowded, we're unspoiled, and we're a little difficult to get to, but my God, once you come here, you fall in love.
We just thought if we could pull people to come into this Wild Rivers Coast and stay longer and explore a little farther into our backcountry, there was a lot of opportunities for them to experience.
I think our whole future is at stake here. This area is ready to go. We just need to give it a little kick in the butt.
I'm gonna be honest, when the Rural Tourism Studio came here, I was skeptical because I didn't see far enough ahead that we actually could collaborate regionally, and I'm pleasantly surprised. It's been amazing.
The Rural Tourism Studios was the first time we were able to come together as a region to talk about the future of our economy.
If we can have a strong tourism economy in this area, it's going to benefit the whole community.
We have to rely on ourselves, and I think through this program, it's sort of opened our eyes to what we could do when we work together. Community leaders really focused on 3 areas: outdoor recreation, food and agricultural tourism, and really building community relationships.
In our area, a lot of the food that's grown all gets shipped away. And so now we're realizing that we can capture some of that local food that's grown here. The Eat Fresh and Local Action Team has hosted a series of networking events bringing together the area growers with the area vendors so that we could have more local food available to the visitors to our area. And now we're seeing more local food in our grocery stores, in our restaurants, and we have a new local food co-op.
We created a farm trail from Bandon to Port Orford. We did 9 U-Pick farms, and it just gained traction, and people loved it.
Langlois is less than 500 people. It's very small. So we have to bring in tourists. And being on the farm trail, even though it's just beginning, has really helped do that. We really want to make it a destination for anybody. My mom and I began Dragonfly Farm just 3 years ago. When I found out that I could grow a seed and turn that into food, it was like, oh my gosh, why wouldn't you do this? I just quit my day job and I just signed the paper to be an official co-owner of the farm. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life and grow with the community.
Out of the Outdoor Recreation Action Team, we came up with a series of maps that show where the best places to go recreate are. We know where we're going to send people now, and we got a great map that shows all the best places to go see.
For us to get a mapping project done to this extent is pretty impressive. We're patting ourselves on the back. I don't know anybody else is, but we're doing it.
From that, we decided that there was some places that needed help, so we came up with a mountain bike plan, and we also worked on designating a state scenic bikeway. The Outdoor Recreation Action Team was also looking at how we can make scuba diving better in this area. So we came up with the idea for a scuba fill station. So now people that want to come and dive in this area, they can dive for multiple days because they can get their tanks filled up again. When I started the Rural Tourism Studio, my business, South Coast Tours, was really small. And now we've grown to about 5 or 6 guides, and we're doing tours all over from Brookings all the way up to Coos Bay.
Overall, tourism is on the rise here. We've had a bang-up last 2 years, and it's like a breath of fresh air down here.
My hope for the area is that we still keep that sense of place.
Loving a place to death is a big concern that I have, and it's a balance. We're going to promote tourism, but we want to do it in a sustainable way. One of the biggest reasons that this area has been so successful since the Tourism Studio is the people that are involved. We have a lot of great, motivated, smart people who understand the need to promote tourism in the right way, and it's really all about the people.
When you live in a rural community like we do, from Bandon down to Brookings, and you're strapped for cash, relationships are crucial.
As a community, I think you need to come together and find out what your mission and goals are collectively. Then you can work into smaller groups, knowing that you have the backing of the whole community behind you.
As long as everybody's just super excited about it and passionate about what they're doing and they can work together, then anything's possible.
Own what you have and don't try to be something that you're not. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna take a long time, so roll up your sleeves and just dig in with an open mind.
What draws you to the Oregon coast? Is it the green and blue surf on a brilliant sunny day, or angry, boiling waves during a raging winter storm? Do you prefer quiet coves or powerful breakers churning the sand? How about sand castles? Do you come for the rising tide or the setting sun, to marvel at whales gliding through the sea or flying in the sky? Reasons to travel the Pacific Coast Scenic Byway are as far-reaching as your imagination. This is a spectacular part of Oregon that traces the entire coastline along Highway 101, guiding you to the sea and away again, to coastal towns big and small, lowland marshes, and breathtaking overlooks. It's a long byway stretching from the mouth of the Columbia River to the California border, 363 miles in all, of some of the most unblemished, awe-inspiring seascapes you'll find anywhere. In addition to its designation as a scenic byway, Highway 101 in Oregon also has been selected as an all-American road. That means when you come here, you will experience one of only 31 roads considered to be the best of the best in America.
You know, when people come to the Oregon coast, they're really astonished how beautiful it is. And what separates it from many of the other places in North America that are coastal is how undeveloped it is. And that's because Oregon had a very far-sighted land use program back in the 1970s. We have all these wonderful state parks along the scenic byway that are perfect places to stop and enjoy nature in a relatively unspoiled way.
From the north, you begin in Astoria, the first permanent European settlement in the Pacific Northwest. It's a genuine maritime community with ship traffic from around the world seeking harbor up the Columbia. The official State Maritime Museum of Oregon sits here on the river. Beautiful Victorian houses dot the hillside. And standing 600 feet above sea level is the 125-foot Astoria Column. It features a hand-painted spiral frieze that would stretch over 500 feet if unwound. Heading south, you'll find the community of Seaside, a popular vacation spot that offers miles of public beaches and oceanfront.
I'll record them if you, oh, you're going to get the signatures first. Okay. How about if I hang on to this so we have the original order? Okay. They don't need that, do they? They don't need this, just us. So, thanks, John.
Bye, Sheriff. Thank you.
Stay out of trouble, will you?
Good work.
All right, we're ready. We are back in session, and we were in the middle of talking about the road fund. And Mr. Christensen, if you want to step back up to the mics, you can, because I'm sure some people, maybe one of the other commissioners might have more questions for you on this, or comments. But again, I just wanted to continue the conversation. Commissioner Boice, you said you wanted to hear it again. Basically, what it is I just thought of this the other day, and I called.
South Curry County Emergency Room?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is about the road fund and the possibility of it being used to loan the hospital the money to get the emergency room open in Brookings, to expedite that process. And I gave the CEO of the hospital a call the other day and asked if this would be something that their board would do, if the county would agree to do this to expedite the emergency room, and she felt it would be something that the board would quickly embrace. So she has not asked the entire board this yet, but it is something that of course they're looking to get the emergency room open as quickly as possible, and this would certainly expedite that immensely. So again, I am one of those people that I think we need to be very good stewards of the road fund. And I think loaning the road fund out to anything that could have a very minimal possibility of failure is something that I would have a difficult time looking at. However, because this money has been appropriated, because of the work that David Brock Smith and others have done to get this money put through for us, the state has already approved it. The governor has signed it. It's just a matter of when the county or when the hospital will receive the money. So this is something that, in my opinion, the risk to the county is very minimal. The money that could be generated, additional monies to the road fund that could be generated for this through an increased interest rate of what we're normally getting with our county treasurer and how she invests the money now versus the interest that the hospital would be willing to pay the county as they would any lending agency that they will go to for this money, which the CEO of the hospital did say that they would be probably looking to go to another agency, a lending agency, to get this money in hopes of getting the emergency room open sooner. So if we could expedite that for them and get that, get a little bit higher interest rate and get that emergency room open, I just think that's a win-win. Commissioner Gold.
I think it's important that we follow the process that we set out as far as the ordinance. Otherwise, if we fast track something and just say, hey, we're shoving this through, that's going to set a precedent. I don't think that would be the wise way to go.
I don't think we're trying to fast track anything.
No, I just said if.
No, I understand, and I'm not being combative here. We're discussing this, so this is a good discussion. I'm just saying I'm not looking to fast track this. You know what's been written. I'm certain that the hospital would be certainly willing to come here and get this done. You know, whatever we need them to do. So, Commissioner Boice.
You've done a lot of financing, and you've been in business a long time. If you haven't already read it, and I know we get overloaded on reading requirements and material, try and make the time to read that ordinance and see if you think it's too restrictive. Maybe it's not restrictive enough. You know my opinion. I would just encourage you, if you have the time. I put up a lot of resistance on that because it's not an incentive to really take a serious, low-risk loan for any of our taxing districts. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, I just briefed it this morning for a
you
couple
did.
of minutes,
Good.
but I did not read it and study it.
Understand.
And I'm one of those people that some people can book learn really quickly. If you tell me something, I commit it to memory. If I have to read it, I have to read it 3 times to get the same amount of commitment. So I would like to look at it further. But, you know, in business, I think banking and investment companies always look for what's called the highest rated paper that you can find. AAA paper, of course, government bonds, AAA paper are always what everyone looks to find for investment. They're the lower interest rates, but they are the highest rate of return as far as guaranteeing payment back. So, and a lot of people that are looking for long-term retirement look at those kind of things versus stocks and bonds because their risk on those is much higher. So,
Good.
you know, when you've already got a state agency, that's basically a AAA agency. They've already appropriated the funding for this. I think, again, this would be a AAA paper loan for the county and the road fund. I think, again, the risk that this county would face of not getting that state money unless the hospital did something, and I don't even know if that's in the language of that. I don't understand the language of that, so I don't even want to go there.
Good.
But you know, the only thing I think the hospital needs to make sure of is that their board is on board with this, that they would be willing to come over and address this board and do what we need them to do, and to make sure that the state, there are no wrinkles in the transfer of the money if they borrow it from another agency first, that the state would still give that money to repay that loan. And I think those are all things that we would need to make sure of in writing before we can move forward. Commissioner Gold.
And I think it's going to be important if they were to apply at a bank or some other financial institute for a loan, they would have to go through the application process just as we should require that they go through the application process. I think it's important that everything, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, because we have a fiduciary responsibility to this county.
And I agree with you on that, but I will say that the state has already put the hospital through that requirement by looking at this and getting that funded. I'm pretty certain the government or the legislative, the Senate, and our governor would not have signed that bill if they felt that the hospital was at risk of not doing as they've promised. So I do agree that they do need to come here and answer questions and provide a comfort for the county, but I would say that the state has probably already met their requirements. Commissioner Gold?
It was my understanding that this was not a loan to the hospital. This was like a gift, so to speak. And so I don't think they had to go through the application process that they would have to go through to go to a bank to get a loan.
Okay.
So that's my point.
Commissioner Boice?
I just don't want the county to become the biggest bureaucracy. The focus is what? 14,000 people don't have an emergency room. The state has recognized that this is low risk and has, for goodness sakes, has stepped up to the plate in a big way thanks to the legislators that we've had working on this. Your presentation there, before we took a break, nothing else needs to be said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Whoops, excuse me.
Can Ms. Schmelzer?
Well, I just want to add that the ordinance that the board adopted last November does say the process starts with an application. So if the hospital is interested in pursuing this, they would need to submit an application. There's a $1,000 application fee with that, and then we'll start the public notice process and scheduling a public hearing, and that's how everything gets started. So we'll need the application.
And the CEO, that I spoke with her about this, and she does understand the process, and she is willing to do that process. So I don't see any issues with that.
I didn't
Commissioner
mean
Boice?
to interrupt you, I'm sorry there. We used to be on a loan that you communicated there early on in your presentation. It was a loan basis. And then we gradually went away from that. The whole concept and objective behind the House Bill 3435 was to bring the county, there's 5 counties that can do this, as you know, to bring that back under the loan guidelines. I'm all for that. All I'm offering is the guidelines are so restrict, it's not a realistic approach to trying to help taxing districts within our community and our county. So a chance to bring everybody together, and so I think that would probably relieve some of your anxiety that, is this just gonna be something we give and we don't really have a repayment plan in the long-term idea.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you again.
My thing today, I didn't know about $2 million. I didn't know about the hospital. I just knew it came on agenda yesterday for a general discussion. So I'm good with, you know, whatever the you commissioners decide with a short-term loan to the hospital. But, you know, I just want to let you know that at the beginning of this fiscal year, we're at $31 million, and that's before the road department's taking $3.5 million because those SRS funds are not coming in. Those rollover funds that we used to come in every year, that we used to keep $4 million of rollover funds, those no longer exist. And we also are putting $820,000 in our towers this year. We're putting $1.2 million into our sheriff's department. So after these projects are done this fiscal year, we're only going to have $25.5 million in there, is what the list projection is. And so, you know, if the road department's taking $4 million a year, we don't change business, and we keep taking $4 million and nobody else takes any money, $25 million doesn't go very far. I know there's interest coming in on that, and that, you know, extra interest from the hospital would help with that. So I understand the big picture, and I support whatever you decide. I just want to let you have the information that we have.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gold?
Have you had a chance to read the ordinance, Rich? On the.
I just glanced over it, but
You might wanna
I'm
look
like
at that.
Commissioner Paasch. I got to read things maybe 5 times.
Okay.
Ditto.
So.
There's always a highlighter.
Thank you.
Commissioner Boice.
There's a solution here. And as Representative David Brock-Smith mentioned at our Brookings meeting the other night, all the work he didn't mention this, but he did tremendous work on the ONC 18 BLM counties, and now I'm serving on that board, and he challenged me to stay with it. And we had a meeting, and in Coos Bay at the BLM district office. Curry County has the distinction of being partially under the Medford BLM district, but mostly under the Coos Bay district. The Coos Bay district has a very good reputation, and this meeting highlighted that. It was myself from Curry County, Tim Freeman from Douglas County, and Bob Main from Coos County. And if I wanted to just do my best to summarize what the meeting was about, it is getting money back to the counties, and you're in the situation you're in, so that we do fill that program. And it comes back to managing forests, public lands, battling and preventing catastrophic fires. Under the leadership of Rocky McVeigh, AONC, that meeting could not have went better. It doesn't mean that when we worked with Greg Walden a year and a half ago and got 1.2 million back in from the PILT program, and trying to keep those funds going. The AOC dues that we pay, what is it, 16,000 a year, whatever it is, 17,000 a year, money very well spent. Of all the boards I serve on, this is number one, because it also gives us a connection to the Forest Service and the portions that come back into our treasury that is rightfully belonging to the counties to support the services that we have to provide. So I hope that over time, through the people that I'm working with that are incredibly qualified to understand what the stakes are and to, again, that focus on public lands management and how that comes back to the counties, we've got a chance there to really keep making a difference. And I hope a couple years from now, if I'm still here, I'm saying, hey, we did get some back to you from the Forest Service in this avenue, some from this avenue from the federal government, the BLM, et cetera. So I'll have you a longer report down the road, but that's all I need for now.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Commissioners.
Thank you.
David Barnes, you had a comment on this?
Thank you. I've been listening to what's been said. I've been listening over the last few years to talk about the road fund. Commissioner Paasch, I disagree with you. I kind of, I believe that there's a lot more risk to this than what you assume to it. It'd be one thing if a bank went out and loaned the hospital money to do this. The government is more liable to make good when it's a bank. When it's a county government, though, I see a good chance of somebody in the state saying, well, they have the money to pay for this. We can use this $2 million somewhere else. As Rich was saying before, the money that he's been giving to the Sheriff's Department started out as a loan. That got changed. That's not a loan anymore. The same thing can happen to this. You know, I don't put your chances of loss at zero on this. Also, to what Commissioner Boice was saying about the ordinance, I've read the ordinance. I don't think it's that onerous. There's a number of steps that have to be taken. I remember when the ordinance was passed and all the discussion that went along with it. There's a number of steps that have to be taken, as it should be. You know, it shouldn't be like you come in, I need $2 million and write out the check. The process is long for a reason. That's to make sure of things. You know, again, as Rich is saying, we're down to $25 million. That's 6.5 years worth of road fund money left if we don't do something with it. I don't see this as being as risk averse as you do, I guess. And I would advise serious caution before you do this. But if you're going to, there is at least a process in place to get it started, and all those risks and concerns can come up during the public hearings on that. I just wanted to speak today on it, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, and I will let the public know that I'm not looking to cut any corners on this, and we're not certainly here to do favors for anyone. The CEO of the hospital has made it very clear that she would ask her board to go through this process, and I would expect nothing less to go through the process. I didn't say that there was zero chances of this failing. I just said I think it is minimal. Once the state appropriates money and the governor signs that bill, I think the legal issues would be pretty catastrophic for the state if once they appropriate money and people begin to spend in hopes of and they don't fulfill those appropriations, that they could face some serious consequences to that. And again, I would make sure before I would ask this board to distribute any money from the road fund, that everything is, all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted with the state to make sure that that money could be used as a reimbursement to the county, and that they could not renege, for lack of a better word, on that. The other thing is, it would never be a $2 million loan, I don't believe. Like she said, it would be more of a floating loan that would be a $750 in the beginning, and then possibly if they needed more, that they would do that, and that's all they would be liable for the interest rate on. And that's how it would probably have to be approved. So with no further comment on that, Commissioner Boice?
Do we have board consensus that we could at least review that ordinance and get an opinion, maybe second opinions or multiple opinions on if we want to keep it, as I believe is too strict, or do we want to consider possible amendments to that?
I would have to agree with Mr. Barnes. I don't think it's a cumbersome ordinance at all. It starts with an application and a public hearing process. It, like any other program like this, it lays out exactly what they have to do. I think it's manageable. I think after we have an application and we run through that process, maybe that's a better time to look at it and say, should something be tweaked in here? But for now, I think we should just go with the ordinance as written.
And I'd like to, again, read it and chew on it, and then I can let you know if I think there's anything in there that I have an issue with. Commissioner Gold, do you have anything further on it?
I think the process needs to be carried out, all the T's crossed and I's dotted, and because we definitely have a fiduciary responsibility for this
Absolutely.
road fund.
I think we all are in agreement on that it is our fiduciary responsibility to spend the money in this county wisely. So thank you to the board for hearing this. And then we will move forward now to director's comments. Ms. Schmelzer.
So I just wanted to give you an update on the strategic plan. So I've been in contact with Moss Adams, and we're going to begin the strategic planning process as far as meeting with managers and commissioners the first week in October. So for our first meeting, that I believe it's October 3rd, for that workshop, we would actually be meeting with Moss Adams to go through and have them ask us some questions, and they can share with you what they've learned from their meetings with the managers and
October what?
things. I believe it's October 3rd is our workshop. Because they start, they're going to start October, it's that first week in October where they're going to start meeting with the managers and hopefully meet with the board that week as well.
Okay.
So that process is starting, so that's good. The deputy code administrator, as you just approved the job description, that's a part-time position. We'll start advertising for that right away. And we'll probably start with a 2-week advertisement and then see if we need to hold that open a little longer. The credit card policy that we've been waiting on since I think January or February should be coming to the board this month. Charlene had actually done a draft. She ran it past the managers. We got the comments back from council, I think this week or last week, so that'll be coming forward to the board. And then, as you know, Charlene had applied for, or she found a program or a grant where we could get that wage study done for under $5,000. We signed the contract on that yesterday, so the goal is to have that wage study completed by January 31st. There's some other things that go along with that. They want, as part of that process, they want to look at some of the hiring practices and everything involved and kind of give us a whole cleaned up process involved with that. So that part will take a little longer, but the wage study itself should be done by January 31st. That's all I have.
Okay. Commissioner Gold.
I'll make this short, sweet, and to the point. The SWOC seminars are starting this Thursday on dog behaviors. I wish I could go to that because my doggie isn't so well behaved right now. And they'll be doing weekly seminars. Unfortunately, I can't go because I've got a meeting in Crescent City. So anyway, that's my report. So if you got a dog that needs behavior or has behavior issues, go to the seminar.
Okay. As for me, I really don't have a lot to report other than I am going to be looking into the situation with the VA down in Brookings, and I'm going to try and coordinate with the director in Roseburg to look into the problems, the apparent problems of the VA, not hospital, but the clinic down in Brookings. And hopefully deal with those issues. Again, I've been in contact with Congressman DeFazio's office on the Rogue and the Corps of Engineers. I had a lengthy conversation with one of the people that does the navigational part of cleaning the Rogue, and we are going to be continuing those conversations in the next coming weeks to still look at getting the Rogue River cleaned out from Elephant Rock down. And the permitting process, the Corps cannot do that, but they are trying to get us information on some companies that do, and the permitting process to accomplish that. So that's about all I have today. Commissioner Boice?
That looks like a challenge to be really short.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, that's not me. I'm talking to the public here, and I did get a note, Gary Milliman and I did, from Darren Naval on the condition of Hooskanaden. And I want to read this real quick, short paragraph. Hey guys, I wanted you to be aware before you see the newspaper that we are not going to be able to get the road put back into its original alignment for winter. I think you had some heads up on this from DeFazio's office. We had one bidder and that they couldn't get it built before winter. We are going to make some changes to the contract and put it out again this winter to be built next spring and summer. And I think that's a good plan. I mean, it's not the best news, but nonetheless, I think that corner on the south end is a little touchy, but they're taking safety precautions on that. And with the what do you call it, the indented pavement, I'm not sure what the term is there. We'll have no normal movement, but don't think we'll have anything more than a normal year unless we have that terrible winter, so we'll be on guard, which leads me to my next item. I'm going to be asking Jeremy Dumeyer, and I heard from KCIW Radio, Lori Stoddard, just where the county is on when we have an emergency, and with the excellent presentations that Emergency Management Coordinator Dumeyer have offered both at our Port Orford and Brookings meeting. If we had an emergency right now, what would be the sequence? What would happen? Obviously, we'd get the commissioners, the sheriff, and Mr. Dumeyer together. We want to get that word out to the public, so I'm not exactly sure what I'm proposing other than I just want to be ready, especially as we approach this winter, so I'll be able to give more on that later on. Next thing, on January 31st of 2017, I had offered an 18-point plan on what I felt was the best options and movement forward for the county, and I'm going to have a report on that hopefully on our 18th meeting, just an update, and surprisingly, especially due to this board and the work we've done the last 8 months, a lot of those issues are getting some movement forward, so I'll talk more on that later on. This Friday night in Brookings, we have the Curry County Shootout, the Panthers and the Bruins in varsity football, and so that's been a great tradition. Some say that it should just, why not play it in the gravel, because it's that serious, and so both those are good programs. As you know, originally Gold Beach was faced with possibly not having a team. Brookings is very well coached too, and so invite everybody to go down Friday night and watch the game. I wish it was at Gold Beach. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Next, what happened at our meeting for the housing summit? Whatever the technical difficulties were there, I just want to challenge the board and the staff to see if we can kind of understand and get that fixed so we don't have that situation again. I think everybody adapted very well and handled it, but having to come up here and sit at this little bench, I'm not sure what the problem was, but I'm hoping. Come on in, Sheriff. More signatures?
That's a triplicate.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I gotta hit the band.
Okay.
I like your hat.
Yeah.
Cute.
Makes me look taller, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It does. You
Hey,
should wear
be sure
another
and-
one.
Not that I'm short.
Be sure and get that
You should wear
message to
another
the
one. You should
Coos
wear
County
another one.
Commissioners. They whited that
They
out.
don't need that.
I don't need to know.
Oh, it was just me?
Yeah. You,
Yeah,
sign 3 places.
I'm your problem child.
Thanks, John.
Next here is Verizon bills costing the county for the employees about $2,300 a month, and at the top it shows where I'm paying. I'm responsible for the use of that phone. There's about $54 a month, which is pretty high. I want the public to know I hardly ever use that phone except when I'm off campus and I need to do the Wi-Fi to the county laptop when I'm at my home, whatever. So Cena's been keeping me pretty well informed on that, but that's a big chunk of money that goes out for the entire year. You can figure it out, it's 30 or 40,000, and so I'm not saying everybody's abusing the phone, but I'm just surprised that some of the bills are that high, and it's part of the plan that's been explained to me. I'm not sure if we want to look at possibly over time developing if it could be done with a better plan. I'm not complaining against Verizon, but it just seems like an awful lot of money, and I don't know why I'm paying $54 when I basically just use the Wi-Fi on occasion for county business. On the Vets boat ride, I'm sorry, somebody said there were some people who were concerned that I use county employees to get the Vets 2 trips going, and it was a county program. Yes, I use my county email part of the time and my personal email part of the time, because that's where my veterans' addresses are to contact and make the invitations, Mr. Chair. So I just want the public to know that I've donated this on my own Sunday for both days, and I did all the organizing and planning and scheduling myself. A little help from with my wife, of course, but I do want to mention, again, the Tuttle family, the Dorico family, and the Idy family, and then the Ocean Diner at Sport Haven for the second trip. They wrote the whole check for $750 so the vets could have a meal at Cougar Lane. And of course, Jerry's Mail Boats, wow, they wouldn't even let me pay for the fuel, so on either trip. So I just couldn't extend bigger gratitude there. And by the way, the vets on those 2 trips donated a total of $538 to Curry kids out of their own pocket. So it was, I didn't even hardly have to mention it, but one of my buddies on each trip that went with me, that were both vets, carried around this bucket, and you know, men and women veterans put money in. We have 3 scheduled state boards here, 2, excuse me, and then 1 AOC board. And I'll give you those dates real quick. Very proud to have the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife Board of Directors will be here on the 13th. I've been asked to introduce them and welcome them, and so of course I'm looking forward to that. I know some of the members. We have good representation in Curry County, by the way, on that board, and I'm going to make a little presentation to her at some point. She just got on and is doing a great job. Then on 9/18, we have our board meeting. I'll also be welcoming them and greeting them, and that's the Oregon Parks Commission. And so that's kind of a nice thing for Curry County to have these 2 entities come here and recognize our place and our beauty, and certainly make the effort. On the 4th of October, the AOC District 4 board will be meeting here. That is Jackson, Josephine, Curry, Coos, and Douglas counties. Commissioner Lily Morgan is the chair. I'm the vice chair, and I'll have that agenda available to the commissioners. No reason you can't attend if you would like to. It's not, if there's 2 of us there, we're not going to be discussing policy, but would encourage you on that.
So where is that?
October 4th is at the Rogue Landing. Thank you for setting that up, by the way. I think that's a great choice.
Can I deal with Lily that long?
She's awesome. You know, I'll run interference for you. And that's 10 to 2, and it's very hardworking, very committed. Obviously, rural commissioners. And there's one more thing I wanted to say about this agenda on the ONC the board there. The ONC counties are meeting in Coos Bay with the district BLM there. Something that Tim Freeman, because of his time served in the legislature, he served 4 terms, now he's back as Douglas County Commissioner. Something that he has really been able to communicate, and this is also Commissioner Colleen Roberts from Jackson County, that really bears repeating. And when again, it comes the money back to the counties. There's 3 areas that make it difficult for the counties, and they're kind of new policies. One is the forest collaboratives, and the second one is the Good Neighbor Authority, which is the Oregon Department of Forestry, taking over some of the forest restoration projects. And then the other one is the third one, stewardship. Those 3 areas of monies do not come back to the counties. I've had this discussion with David Brock-Smith. He's on the other side a little bit, but the reason I want to spend just a moment here on this is because the counties tend to benefit from the long term when reforestation takes place. So the money basically goes from the county to the federal forest for the projects. And so we are battling, Colleen Roberts, Tim Freeman, certainly Bob Main, we're battling to say, okay, there's a way to run the stewardship contracts. There's a way to run the Good Neighbor Authority and the forest collaboratives to not let that money leave the county coffers and just go back to the state or even the federal projects. So I could spend more time on that, Mr. Chair. Not necessary. The last thing I have, I'm going to be working with Summer Matteson. I have a letter here that I wrote in January of 18. Basically, why don't we look at a countywide chamber? And there's some merit behind that. This is an idea. I think that, I know that Summer Matteson and Julie Schmelzer came up with 2 or 3 years ago. It's a common sense approach. The local chambers are struggling Port Orford, Gold Beach, and Brookings. So I think, yeah, we could look at possibly taking that program and making a difference and spending the few bucks we have more efficiently. That's all I have. Thank you again.
All right. So at this time, we are going to enter into executive session under ORS 192.660 to F and H, information not subject to disclosure and likely litigation, and ORS 192.6602E to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions. So this meeting will go into recess. We will reconvene after executive session, and this meeting is now in recess.
If yours is the next big idea, and you need the right place to fine-tune it, build it, launch it, if you're only your best when you can play more than you work, if inspiration comes from the outside, you belong in Curry County. The westernmost point of the land you love, and the edge between familiar and uncharted. Break the pattern. Be where the airports are as close as the beaches, and industry and recreation never cease to amaze. Dock, dive, and dine in a single day, and never lose your connection. This is the threshold of the West. Live where you can do you, and do it well, at the farthest point from ordinary. Curry County, living on the edge.
One of the things I really appreciate about our entire region is that we embrace who we are, and I think that's what unifies us. Once the timber and fishing industries collapsed, it took us a long time to get back on our feet. People didn't quite grasp the idea that once these jobs left, they weren't going to get other family wage jobs, and it crippled us.
Things were getting really dire. So we just saw that this was an opportunity to maybe look at that public land a little differently and how it could bring more dollars into our region.
The Wild Rivers Coast is so unique because there are more wild and scenic rivers here than anywhere else in the lower 48 states. The scenic beauty is just amazing. There's so many different places to go, from the national forest down to the protected ocean, and it's just a really special place.
I guess I didn't really know how special it was, though, until I moved away to Portland and came back and saw all the potential here.
We're uncrowded, we're unspoiled, and we're a little difficult to get to, but my God, once you come here, you fall in love.
We just thought if we could pull people to come into this Wild Rivers Coast and stay longer and explore a little farther into our backcountry, there was a lot of opportunities for them to experience.
I think our whole future is at stake here. This area is ready to go. We just need to give it a little kick in the butt.
I'm gonna be honest, when the Rural Tourism Studio came here, I was skeptical because I didn't see far enough ahead that we actually could collaborate regionally, and I'm pleasantly surprised. It's been amazing.
The Rural Tourism Studios was the first time we were able to come together as a region to talk about the future of our economy.
If we can have a strong tourism economy in this area, it's going to benefit the whole community.
We have to rely on ourselves, and I think through this program, it's sort of opened our eyes to what we could do when we work together. Community leaders really focused on 3 areas: outdoor recreation, food and agricultural tourism, and really building community relationships.
In our area, a lot of the food that's grown all gets shipped away. And so now we're realizing that we can capture some of that local food that's grown here. The Eat Fresh and Local Action Team has hosted a series of networking events bringing together the area growers with the area vendors so that we could have more local food available to the visitors to our area. And now we're seeing more local food in our grocery stores, in our restaurants, and we have a new local food co-op.
We created a farm trail from Bandon to Port Orford. We did 9 U-Pick farms, and it just gained traction and people loved it.
Langlois is less than 500 people. It's very small. So we have to bring in tourists. And being on the farm trail, even though it's just beginning, has really helped do that. We really want to make it a destination for anybody. My mom and I began Dragonfly Farm just 3 years ago. When I found out that I could grow a seed and turn that into food, it was like, oh my gosh, why wouldn't you do this? I just quit my day job and I just signed the paper to be an official co-owner of the farm. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life and grow with the community.
Out of the Outdoor Recreation Action Team, we came up with a series of maps that show where the best places to go recreate are. We know where we're going to send people now, and we got a great map that shows all the best places to go see.
For us to get a mapping project done to this extent is pretty impressive. We're patting ourselves on the back. I don't know if anybody else is, but we're doing it.
From that, we decided that there was some places that needed help, so we came up with a mountain bike plan, and we also worked on designating a state scenic bikeway. The Outdoor Recreation Action Team was also looking at how we can make scuba diving better in this area. So we came up with the idea for a scuba fill station. So now people that want to come and dive in this area, they can dive for multiple days because they can get their tanks filled up again. When I started the Rural Tourism Studio, my business, South Coast Tours, was really small. And now we've grown to about 5 or 6 guides, and we're doing tours all over from Brookings all the way up to Coos Bay.
Overall, tourism is on the rise here. We've had a bang-up last 2 years, and it's like a breath of fresh air down here.
My hope for the area is that we still keep that sense of place.
Loving a place to death is a big concern that I have, and it's a balance. We're going to promote tourism, but we want to do it in a sustainable way. One of the biggest reasons that this area has been so successful since the tourism studio is the people that are involved. We have a lot of great, motivated, smart people who understand the need to promote tourism in the right way, and it's really all about the people.
When you live in a rural community like we do, from Bandon down to Brookings, and you're strapped for cash, relationships are crucial.
As a community, I think you need to come together and find out what your mission and goals are collectively. Then you can work into smaller groups, knowing that you have the backing of the whole community behind you.
As long as everybody's just super excited about it and passionate about what they're doing and they can work together, then anything's possible.
Own what you have and don't try to be something that you're not. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna take a long time. So roll up your sleeves and just dig in with an open mind.
What draws you to the Oregon coast? Is it the green and blue surf on a brilliant sunny day, or angry boiling waves during a raging winter storm? Do you prefer quiet coves or powerful breakers churning the sand? How about sand castles? Do you come for the rising tide or the setting sun, to marvel at whales gliding through the sea or flying in the sky? Reasons to travel the Pacific Coast Scenic Byway are as far-reaching as your imagination. This is a spectacular part of Oregon that traces the entire coastline along Highway 101, guiding you to the sea and away again, to coastal towns big and small, lowland marshes, and breathtaking overlooks. It's a long byway stretching from the mouth of the Columbia River to the California border, 363 miles in all of some of the most unblemished, awe-inspiring seascapes you'll find anywhere. In addition to its designation as a scenic byway, Highway 101 in Oregon also has been selected as an all-American road. That means when you come here, you will experience one of only 31 roads considered to be the best of the best in America.
You know, when people come to the Oregon coast, they're really astonished how beautiful it is, and what separates it from many of the other places in North America that are coastal is how undeveloped it is. And that's because Oregon had a very far-sighted land use program back in the 1970s. We have all these wonderful state parks along the scenic byway that are perfect places to stop and enjoy nature in a relatively unspoiled way.
From the north, you begin in Astoria, the first permanent European settlement in the Pacific Northwest. It's a genuine maritime community with ship traffic from around the world seeking harbor up the Columbia. The official State Maritime Museum of Oregon sits here on the river. Beautiful Victorian houses dot the hillside. And standing 600 feet above sea level is the 125-foot Astoria Column. It features a hand-painted spiral frieze that would stretch over 500 feet if unwound. Heading south, you'll find the community of Seaside, a popular vacation spot that offers miles of public beaches, an oceanfront promenade, and a downtown core packed with restaurants, shops, and even a beach-type arcade. Cannon Beach is home to one of Oregon's most photographed natural wonders, Haystack Rock. Get your shots from the beach, or take a short drive up to Ecola State Park and look down on this 235-foot work of art. The picturesque small town is filled with art galleries, shops, and cafes. Ready for more? 10 miles to the south, this is the view from Cape Falcon. You're 700 feet above the Pacific. Here, the Pacific Coast Byway has been carved out of Neahkahnie Mountain and held in place by stone walls built in the 1930s by craftsmen in the Civilian Conservation Corps. Upon descending the mountain, the highway drifts inward around Tillamook Bay to Tillamook, the unofficial dairy capital of Oregon. The verdant valley of dairy farms in this area produces 25 million gallons of milk annually. Much of that is processed into natural cheddar cheese. And near more than 800 miles of navigable waters, Tillamook is a crossroads for North Coast recreation. From here, you owe it to yourself to veer off Highway 101 to explore the Three Capes Scenic Loop. This drive places you right at the beach, beginning with Cape Mears, home to the shortest lighthouse in Oregon. 9 lighthouses stand sentinel along Oregon's coastline. They're monuments to our maritime heritage, towering links to the past, and as much a part of the rugged Oregon coastal landscape as any offshore monolith. The Cape Mears Lighthouse was first illuminated in 1890. Oregon's oldest lighthouse is at Cape Blanco, the westernmost point in the state. It was commissioned in 1870 to aid shipping generated by gold mining and the lumber industry. The 93-foot-high Yaquina Head Lighthouse is the tallest in Oregon. Today, its automated light continues to aid navigation at the entrance to Yaquina Bay. Many of the lighthouses are open to the public. Most happen to be excellent places to view nesting seabirds and offshore sea life. Tide pools, those rocky areas between high and low tides, support unique and diverse plants and animals. Vast amounts of colorful, otherworldly creatures wait to be discovered. But walk cautiously. These organisms are tough enough to withstand the pounding surf, but are utterly vulnerable to human activity. Wildlife and sea life abound on the coast.
There are 6 national wildlife refuges along the Oregon coast. The Pacific Coast Scenic Byway bisects these refuges or goes alongside them. It provides you the opportunity to see a wide variety of abundant wildlife, including seabirds, seals and sea lions, deer and elk, and many other wildlife.
Cape Kiwanda lies at the southern end of the Three Capes Scenic Loop, near the town of Pacific City. Here you'll find a second haystack rock on the byway. Hike up the dune to marvel at stunning views of sandstone formations as they turn yellow, gold, or even red in the changing sunlight. If your timing is right, you'll spot 1 or 2 of the dory fleet sprint onto the beach after a day of fishing. How's this for a dinner setting? Restaurants along the Pacific Coast Scenic Byway accommodate just about any taste. Many serve an ocean view with every meal. Up and down the coast, you'll find seafood, of course, but don't limit yourself just because you're by the water. The Central Coast begins around Lincoln City, which is one of the larger communities on the byway. It has a reputation for being windy and was recognized by Kite Lines magazine as the best place to fly a kite in North America. It was incorporated from several small towns and as a result offers a sandy beach that is 7.5 miles long. A number of small state parks lie nestled along the ocean between Lincoln City and Newport. Stop, get out of your car, and take in the commanding views that are there, right next to your all-American road. Depot Bay boasts the world's smallest navigable harbor, 6 square acres in all. A seawall runs the length of the downtown, so everywhere you go, you're rewarded with a dramatic view of the Pacific. It's considered Oregon's whale-watching capital, with thousands making their way past Oregon each fall and spring. Fishing and whale-watching excursions regularly set sail from this little harbor. Leaving Depot Bay, you'll soon find yourself at Cape Foulweather, a basalt outcropping that looms 500 feet above the water. It was here, in 1778, British Captain James Cook first sighted the mainland of North America on the Pacific coast. A fierce storm that almost put an end to his expedition earned this rugged stretch of coastline its name. Coastal weather can change by the hour. You will find a lot of wet days, but rain can become blue sky with white clouds in an afternoon. Mist kissing the headlands burns away, or storms can last for days. Some people come for those storms. Whether you find sunbursts of happiness or cloud cover like a quilt, there's always a reason to come back. Like Lincoln City, Newport is one of the larger towns on the byway. The historic bayfront on the north side of Yaquina Bay hosts one of Oregon's largest commercial fishing fleets. It has a busy, genuine working waterfront feel, with fish plants and boats coming and going from as far away as Alaska. On the south side of the bay is the Oregon Coast Aquarium. Share waters beneath the ocean with sharks and rays. And don't miss the sea otters at mealtime.
Now, all 4 of our otters were rescued otters. They were found out in the wild.
For the next 50 miles, your trip along Highway 101 hugs the coast. Many more state parks offer opportunities to stop and take in outstanding vistas, crashing waves, and offshore rock formations. 2 small towns of note are Waldport and Yachats. Waldport sits on Alsea Bay, where fishing, clamming, and crabbing are popular. The 40-mile stretch south of Waldport marks steep headlands, jagged volcanic outcrops, and jaw-dropping scenery, the rugged edge of the Oregon coast. Yachats is a quiet, unhurried artist town just a couple of miles north of Cape Perpetua. Drive to the top of this bluff, and you'll be 800 feet above the water. On a clear day, you can see 70 miles of Oregon coastline. Drive past Heceta Head Lighthouse to the Sea Lion Caves. A quick elevator ride 200 feet down puts you in America's largest sea cave, the year-round home of wild stellar sea lions. Rugged cliffs give way to graceful beaches as you approach Florence. In the spring, be on the lookout for wild rhododendrons along the roadsides. Similar to Newport, you'll find an historic Old Town commercial district along the Siuslaw River. Florence is the gateway to the Oregon Dunes National Recreation Area, a 47-mile sandbox of wind-sculpted sand dunes towering 500 feet above sea level. These are the largest expanse of coastal sand dunes in North America. Reedsport is at the center of the Oregon Dunes. But you can do more than ride a dune buggy or motorcycle. A short 3 miles east of town on Highway 38, more than 100 Roosevelt elk reside at the Dean Creek Elk Viewing Area. Early mornings or just before dusk are the best times to photograph the herd. Paying homage to Oregon's timber heritage, Reedsport hosts an annual Chainsaw Sculpting Championship, a time to watch three-dimensional artwork come to life right before your eyes. Mountains of sand continue at Winchester Bay. You'll also find an active marina here. It's a great place to try your hand at crabbing or take a charter for salmon or bottom fishing. The dunes end and you enter the coast's largest urban area at Coos Bay. It has the deepest natural harbor between Seattle and San Francisco. Foreign vessels sail under the massive McCullough Bridge. You may have noticed, dotted along the Pacific Coast Scenic Byway are many beautiful and iconic bridges. The Megler Bridge in Astoria, Yaquina Bay Bridge in Newport, Alsea Bay Bridge in Waldport, Siuslaw River Bridge in Florence, and the magnificent McCullough Bridge in Coos Bay are works of art in their own right. Charleston is slightly off the byway at the mouth of the bay. It was once an old waterfront fishing village and has become a commercial and sport fishing center. From here, the Charleston to Bandon tour route offers another side trip off the byway. It's a wonderful way to explore a variety of natural Pacific Coast beauty in a number of settings: beaches, vistas, gardens, and more. Giant sea stacks, a tiny lighthouse, and an old town await you in Bandon. Do you like to golf? This remote area on the Oregon coast has not one, but 3 of the most stunning and challenging golf courses in the world. As you drive south of town, look for brilliant red bogs in the fall. You're passing through the cranberry capital of Oregon. After a trek through forests and farmlands, you'll reach Port Orford. The wild coast has begun. You're in the most westerly city in the continental United States, and you've reached some of the most awesome scenery on the byway. Here you can watch a fishing fleet launched by crane in one of only 6 dolly ports in the world. Port Orford covers less than 2 square miles. It's similar to many communities that call this all-American road home. Small in size, still with a lot to offer. Like Manzanita, with a vibrant business district and beautiful setting at the base of Neahkahnie Mountain. You can board a fishing charter out of Garibaldi, swim in freshwater lakes near Dune City, catch world-class windsurfing at Pistol River. There is little development from Port Orford to Gold Beach, outlet for the renowned Rogue River. Feel like going for a ride? Jet boat excursions run from May into October up this wild and scenic river. Or maybe a midday walk on an uncrowded beach is more your speed. The last dozen miles of the Pacific Coast Byway leading into Brookings save some of the best for last. Treat yourself to frequent stops along the Samuel H. Boardman Scenic Corridor. Short hikes reward you with the best views in this shining stretch of coastline. Walk, relax, and be amazed along the coves and the crashing surf. The world's northernmost redwood grove is 8 miles from the mouth of the Chetco River in Brookings. So, you've toured nature's finest art museum. You've dined elegantly, hung out with sea lions, unwound like you wish you could every day. What else is there to do? Step back in history near Astoria, ride a horse along the waves near Florence, pet a baby tiger near Bandon, hike a trail, sample gourmet cheese, eat fresh-caught crab, watch a sunset.
When you come to the Oregon coast and walk on the beaches or go to the headlands and go to the small coastal towns, you really can commune with nature, and you don't have huge numbers of people, but you're also able to take in one of America's last great unspoiled seascapes.
So what draws you to the Oregon coast? What favorite places lure you back again and again? Each visit is different. The ocean, the sky, the light, and the experience always continue to amaze. Shouldn't you be there?
There's something about having land and sea. Never having to choose between digging in or looking out. Here, you can go where the spirit or the wind moves you. To the tops of the trees, along secluded beaches, or into more wild and scenic rivers than anywhere else in the western United States. We're the closest place to the sunset while still keeping your feet dry, and a destination where anyone can begin. We share more than we keep, so you can see more than you imagined. This is a place you have to touch, hold, and feel to believe. The entire shoreline of the West Coast's best coast is open to you, and playgrounds made of forests are waiting for you. Escape to Curry County and don't leave anything out.
Roadway departure fatalities are a serious and often preventable problem in the United States. The Federal Highway Administration reports that 54% of all highway fatalities are caused by drivers leaving their lane of travel. The Oregon Department of Transportation is taking a proactive approach to reduce this kind of tragedy by implementing a centerline and shoulder rumble strip program.
Rumble strips are one of the most low-cost, cost-effective countermeasures that we can apply across the system.
Rumble strips are grooved patterns on the roadway that make a rumbling sound and a physical vibration, immediately warning inattentive drivers that they're leaving their driving lane. Rumble strips allow drivers to self-correct and avoid an accident.
About 67% of fatal crashes in Oregon are road departure crashes, which are a vehicle can leave the lane to the right and hit a ditch or a rock or a tree, something like that, or cross over the center line to the left and get in a head-on collision or a sideswipe meeting type crash.
Over an 8-year period, ODOT engineers studied segments of 16 different highways and concluded that rumble strips are highly effective at reducing lane departures.
We did a before and after crash analysis to find that we have reduced head-on fatalities by 40% with the installation of centerline rumble strips.
We've been trying to find a way to deal with a problem that seems to be increasing over the last 10 or 15 years with our drivers, and that's distracted driving. And there's a lot of things that cause distracted driving. All these distractions are things that make people take their attention away from where it should be.
Comparisons between other available safety features like guardrail and concrete barriers show that shoulder and centerline rumble strips are the most cost-effective safety treatment available.
We're finding that those are very effective in trying to make sure that when you do make that mistake, it's not the last mistake you make. They help bring your attention back to the driving task and bring you back to where you should be, focusing on being in the middle of your lane and being safe.
ODOT makes a conscious effort to use a bike-friendly rumble strip design where possible and installs 12-foot bike gaps every 48 feet of rumble strip. ODOT understands that rumble strips create a noise that can be disruptive for people who live near rural highways, and we're trying to address these concerns with different approaches.
For the noise, we're looking at some new designs. We're hoping that the new design rumble strip will be just as effective at saving people from making an error and much quieter, on the order of 10 times as quiet. And we're actually going to be installing our first full set of these style of rumble strips along 205 this summer.
So we recognize that noise is a concern, but one of the things I like to tell people is whenever you hear the sound of a rumble strip, it could be the sound of the life being saved of one of your loved ones.
Rumble strips are proven to save lives. The Oregon Department of Transportation is taking the lead in implementing the sound of safety.
I love walking. It's what I do. So who better to share some tips to help keep your walk safe
wait for the signal, take in the sights and smells till you get the go-ahead to cross. Use intersections to cross, but when you can't, remember your training. Always look left, right, left. Show you want to cross and wait for all lanes of traffic to stop. And make eye contact so you know the driver sees you. Hi there. Good human. You get a treat when we get home.
How many letters?
5 letters.
Just think about, what am I doing right now?
Smile. Smile?
Uh-huh.
This is so easy.
Sign that doesn't have a rider on it, so we take our first test at this posted speed limit of 35
Bob
miles
Weeks
per
and
hour.
Harley Bills are seeing more than their share of curvy roads these days. Their job is to drive every stretch of highway in Region 1 several times. All this driving back and forth.
That way we can get it all the way up. All right, sounds good.
The old limits were set back in the 1930s and 40s and were changed very little until just recently. So now our limits are taking into account newer vehicles, a little bit more aggressive driving style, and so those limits are going up.
And going up in a big way. This is Eric Leeming, a traffic devices engineer with ODOT. He's driving an ordinary car with some extraordinary tech on board, a GPS device that records data as he maneuvers every curve in the road. Back at his office, Eric can upload the data recorded in the car, and special software determines exactly the right speed for every curve, every time. Most speeds will increase by 5 to 10 miles per hour, but in some special cases, it's much higher.
The state has a deadline of 2019 from the Federal Highway Administration, but with 8,000 miles of roads to investigate and potentially thousands of signs to change, they're not wasting any time. They're getting out there right now.
Then we're going to the W113.
About 800 signs along this section.
That's a lot of signs.
It's a lot of signs. If it's a 35-mile-an-hour corner, you should be taking it at 35 miles an hour.
America's 3,069 county governments provide fundamental services for building healthy, safe, and vibrant communities. We are an intergovernmental partner, implementing federal and state policies at the local level, often under strict rules and funding constraints. County governments, through the National Association of Counties, engage federal policymakers on a range of issues like transportation, infrastructure, healthcare, public safety, and public lands management. All of these issues are vital to our nation's quality of life and our long-term prosperity. Decisions made by the White House, Congress, and federal courts have a major cascading impact on our ability to lead our communities and pursue a better future. Let's look at why federal policies matter to county government and why county government matters to America. Counties provide vital services that keep our communities thriving and secure. We own and maintain 45% of roads and 4 out of 10 bridges. We own more than a third of the airports and hundreds of hospitals and thousands of courthouses, jails, 911 call centers, and libraries. We play a critical role during emergencies like hurricanes, floods, and snowstorms. What if you called 911 and no one answered? What if you couldn't reach your medical facility because roads and bridges were in disrepair or never built? County governments are an indispensable part of the infrastructure and services that keep residents safe and connected. But with very limited revenue options under most state constitutions and laws, counties must make every penny count in order to fulfill federal and state mandates and required responsibilities. Nothing is more basic in our society than essential public facilities like schools, hospitals, airports, jails, bridges, and other infrastructure. Yet proposals have surfaced to eliminate or scale back tax-exempt municipal bonds. For over a century, municipal bonds have been the lifeblood for our nation's public infrastructure, helping finance more than $3.7 trillion in essential projects. If tax-exempt municipal bonds were eliminated or scaled back, county governments and our residents would face billions in new costs when financing vital facilities. Additionally, counties rely on MAP 21 and the Federal Highway Trust Fund to complement local transportation financing resources. With growing demands and mounting costs, we need a reliable federal partner to invest with us in our nation's economic growth and competitiveness. We need a long-term legislative solution with increased funding to ensure continued success in operating our nation's transportation system. Counties face further revenue losses each year because billions of dollars in e-commerce sales tax revenue isn't collected. The Marketplace Fairness Act would enable states and localities to collect existing, already owed taxes. It would also level the playing field between many internet retailers who don't collect sales taxes and Main Street businesses that do. County governments provide support services to federal public lands, touching 700 million annual visitors. We lead search and rescue operations, fight fires, protect the public's health, and maintain roads. Federal lands cover nearly 1/3 of the U.S. and impact 69% of counties. Because federal land is exempt from local property taxes, counties depend on PILT, the Payment in Lieu of Taxes program, to provide essential services. The Secure Rural Schools program provides assistance to rural counties and school districts affected by the decline in revenue from timber harvests on federal land. Decisions to cut or delay funding both programs undermine our ability to provide services and maintain public lands. Our intergovernmental partnerships don't end with legislation because counties also implement and comply with federal and state regulations. When considering environmental protections, we know our communities and care deeply about the environment. We need a stronger voice in shaping common sense regulations that protect communities while also promoting economic growth. This is why NACO secured significant improvements to FEMA's flood insurance program and is pushing back on the waters of the U.S. proposed rule. Our message: federal policies matter to county government, and county government matters to America. Every level of government must work together to shape policies that improve the quality of life for all Americans. Whether it's building and maintaining infrastructure, providing essential services, or fostering economic growth, counties are on the front line serving their citizens. NACO stands ready to work with the administration and Congress to make our nation's communities healthier, safer, and more vibrant places to live and work.
text Allison.
Hey, hold up, Matt's calling me, Hey, we got the food and we're on our way right now. Hey, who's coming, bro?
You're the one who needs help.
Counties matter. Counties serve nearly every American every day. Urban, suburban, and rural, counties work with states, the federal government, and other public and private partners to keep our communities healthy, vibrant, and safe. Whether you're commuting to work or shipping goods around the globe, counties matter. Counties own and maintain 45% of the nation's roads and 4 out of 10 bridges. And we're involved in nearly a third of public airports and transit systems. Counties matter when Americans need us the most. Counties matter because we support smart, fair, and effective criminal justice systems. We help fund police and sheriff's departments. We own and operate local jails, 911 call centers, and mental health facilities. Counties create healthy communities. We invest more than $80 billion in hospitals and medical services each year. Counties matter because we invest in the lives of residents of all ages, improving their quality of life where they live and work. Counties are the building blocks of state, regional, and national economies. We support housing, recreation, and economic development. And we do so much more. From issuing birth certificates to administering elections, counties employ more than 3.5 million people. In total, we invest more than $500 billion in our residents and our communities every year. Counties provide essential services we all depend on every day. That's why counties matter.
Why do counties matter? Simple. Counties provide the services we all depend on. If you're concerned about crime, get a regular flu shot. Drive to work. Take public transportation. Or experience a natural disaster in your community. Chances are you benefit from county services. That's why counties matter. With America's system of federalism, counties are a key level of government, serving the people directly. So, do you vote? Had a recent hospital stay? Know someone in a nursing home? More reasons why counties matter. There are 3,069 counties across the country, with populations big and small. Most of us live and work in one. Even the nation's capital is considered a county. These county governments ensure that the food you eat in restaurants is safe. They care for the mentally ill, run court systems, build local economies, and operate 911 emergency systems. They manage parks and recreation facilities. And the list goes on. Thing is, counties serve the American people in so many ways, keeping our communities healthy, vibrant, safe, and fiscally sound. That's why counties matter.
Yeah, I just picked her up. We should be there in 20 minutes.
Who is it? Oh, it's him.
When a large forest fire breaks out, potentially threatening lives, homes, wildlife, and thousands of acres of forest land, the news coverage is immediate and consistent. Interviews with homeowners, firefighters, medical aid providers, and others continues nonstop until the fire is sufficiently contained. At that point, the cameras are turned off, the interviews are over, and it's on to the next event. The images of catastrophic wildfire, with its ferocity and devastating impact on the land, hold the interest and attention of the public. However, there is an equally important story occurring on that same landscape after the fire is contained, mopped up, and finally declared out that the public seldom sees. The frequency and size of these mega fires on federal forest land has increased significantly over the last few decades. All too often, what is left in their wake is a vast sea of dead, charred trees. Unfortunately, because of a maze of confusing and often contradictory rules and regulations, very little rehabilitation or reforestation occurs after these fires. The result of this neglect in many cases is as devastating as the fire itself. Here's why. Even in the hottest, severe fires, most of the dead trees remain standing, the wood not damaged by the fire, still suitable and valuable for lumber. But as the insects move in, within months, the dead and dying trees begin to deteriorate and decompose. Eventually, all of the economic value is lost. What is not removed will decay, add fuel to an even greater future fire threat, and in the process, release the greenhouse gases that the trees gathered and stored during the centuries they were alive. When all of the trees across the tens of thousands of acres burned in each of these megafires are left to rot, millions of tons of destructive greenhouse gases are released into the upper atmosphere. These are the same volatile organic compounds that have been identified as some of the most damaging elements we can put into our air. In contrast, trees harvested soon after the fire is out drive the economic engine that employs people, provides revenue for the critical restoration and reforestation, and can provide dollars for local government services such as schools, public safety, health and social services, libraries, and good roads. When the harvested trees are made into lumber for homes, construction, and furniture, the carbon remains in storage instead of going up into the atmosphere. Dead and dying timber becomes a magnet for insect infestation. These infestations can be so large that they do not end with the burned forest, but progress into the surrounding green forest, killing even more trees, which then become even more fodder for the next fire. In absence of prompt active management and reforestation, invasive brush can dominate the landscape. That brush can retard and even prohibit the growth of the new forest and compound the fuel load for a future fire. When that fire does occur, the dense brush and dead, fallen trees on the ground create a firestorm, burning hotter and even more damaging to the soil than the first fire. These damaged soils can repel water, lack the nutrients and organic matter needed by seedlings, and hinder the ability of new trees to grow. While megafires can be so devastating, not all fires are bad. When the conditions are right, fire has been used for decades as an effective way to reduce fuels on the forest floor, burn back brush and dead grass to stimulate the new growth desired by wildlife, thinning out the younger, overstocked areas of our forests, and maintain the fire resiliency we seek. Controlled burning can be a powerful and useful tool used in the right places at the right time by the professionals we charge with managing these forests. The desired result is to lessen the potential for the large, devastating megafires we have been experiencing these past few decades. Recovery after megafires is not only possible, but can greatly expedite the restoration and creation of all of the benefits of a healthy forest ecosystem. One fine example is Oregon's Tillamook State Forest. After repeated massive fires in the mid-20th century, state, county government, private companies, and even school children worked together to restore and replant over 500 square miles of burned-over landscape. As a result of those efforts, today we have prime fish and wildlife habitat for salmon, trout, elk, and owls, plus camping, hiking and biking trails, healthy growing forests that gather and store carbon, and sustainable timber harvest that supports local economies, funds schools and local governments, and supports thousands of family wage jobs across the region. Without the vision of those state and local leaders just a few decades ago, very little, if any of this, would be possible today. Nearly every year for the past 20 years, we have watched millions of acres of our public forests burned by megafires. We spent hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars fighting them. Yet when the fire is out, a mere fraction of the killed trees and lost value is ever recovered, with little or no effort to restore the burned landscape. What can you do? Contact your elected federal, state, and local officials. Tell them these federal lands and once treasured forests are too valuable to simply walk away. Future generations are depending upon you to take action. For more information, visit us on Facebook at Communities for Healthy Forests.
If yours is the next big idea, and you need the right place to fine-tune it, build it, launch it, if you're only your best when you can play more than you work, if inspiration comes from the outside, you belong in Curry County. The westernmost point of the land you love, and the edge between familiar and uncharted. Break the pattern. Be where the airports are as close as the beaches, and industry and recreation never cease to amaze. Dock, dive, and dine in a single day, and never lose your connection. This is the threshold of the West. Live where you can do you, and do it well, at the farthest point from ordinary. Curry County, living on the edge.
One of the things I really appreciate about our entire region is that we embrace who we are, and I think that's what unifies us. Once the timber and fishing industries collapsed, it took us a long time to get back on our feet. People didn't quite grasp the idea that once these jobs left, they weren't going to get other family wage jobs, and it crippled us.
Things were getting really dire. So we just saw that this was an opportunity to maybe look at that public land a little differently and how it could bring more dollars into our region.
The Wild Rivers Coast is so unique because there are more wild and scenic rivers here than anywhere else in the lower 48 states. The scenic beauty is just amazing. There's so many different places to go, from the national forest down to the protected ocean, and it's just a really special place.
I guess I didn't really know how special it was, though, until I moved away to Portland and came back and saw all the potential here.
We're uncrowded, we're unspoiled, and we're a little difficult to get to, but my God, once you come here, you fall in love.
We just thought if we could pull people to come into this Wild Rivers Coast and stay longer and explore a little farther into our backcountry, there was a lot of opportunities for them to experience.
I think our whole future is at stake here. This area is ready to go. We just need to give it a little kick in the butt.
I'm gonna be honest, when the Rural Tourism Studio came here, I was skeptical because I didn't see far enough ahead that we actually could collaborate regionally, and I'm pleasantly surprised. It's been amazing.
The Rural Tourism Studios was the first time we were able to come together as a region to talk about the future of our economy.
If we can have a strong tourism economy in this area, it's gonna benefit the whole community.
We have to rely on ourselves, and I think through this program, it's sort of opened our eyes to what we could do when we work together. Community leaders really focused on 3 areas: outdoor recreation, food and agricultural tourism, and really building community relationships.
In our area, a lot of the food that's grown all gets shipped away. And so now we're realizing that we can capture some of that local food that's grown here. The Eat Fresh and Local Action Team has hosted a series of networking events bringing together the area growers with the area vendors so that we could have more local food available to the visitors to our area. And now we're seeing more local food in our grocery stores, in our restaurants, and we have a new local food co-op.
We created a farm trail from Bandon to Port Orford. We did 9 U-Pick farms, and it just gained traction, and people loved it.
Langlois is less than 500 people. It's very small. So we have to bring in tourists. And being on the farm trail, even though it's just beginning, has really helped do that. We really want to make it a destination for anybody. My mom and I began Dragonfly Farm just 3 years ago. When I found out that I could grow a seed and turn that into food, it was like, oh my gosh, why wouldn't you do this? I just quit my day job and I just signed the paper to be an official co-owner of the farm. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life and grow with the community.
Out of the Outdoor Recreation Action Team, we came up with a series of maps that show where the best places to go recreate are. We know where we're going to send people now, and we got a great map that shows all the best places to go see.
For us to get a mapping project done to this extent is pretty impressive. We're patting ourselves on the back. I don't know anybody else is, but we're doing it.
From that, we decided that there was some places that needed help, so we came up with a mountain bike plan, and we also worked on designating a state scenic bikeway. The Outdoor Recreation Action Team was also looking at how we can make scuba diving better in this area. So we came up with the idea for a scuba fill station. So now people that want to come and dive in this area, they can dive for multiple days because they can get their tanks filled up again. When I started the Rural Tourism Studio, my business, South Coast Tours, was really small. And now we've grown to about 5 or 6 guides, and we're doing tours all over from Brookings all the way up to Coos Bay.
Overall, tourism is on the rise here. We've had a bang-up last 2 years, and it's like a breath of fresh air down here.
My hope for the area is that we still keep that sense of place.
Loving a place to death is a big concern that I have, and it's a balance. We're going to promote tourism, but we want to do it in a sustainable way. One of the biggest reasons that this area has been so successful since the tourism studio is the people that are involved. We have a lot of great, motivated, smart people who understand the need to promote tourism in the right way, and it's really all about the people.
When you live in a rural community like we do, from Bandon down to Brookings, and you're strapped for cash, relationships are crucial.
As a community, I think you need to come together and find out what your mission and goals are collectively. Then you can work into smaller groups, knowing that you have the backing of the whole community behind you.
As long as everybody's just super excited about it and passionate about what they're doing and they can work together, then anything's possible.
Own what you have and don't try to be something that you're not. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna take a long time. So roll up your sleeves and just dig in with an open mind.
What draws you to the Oregon coast? Is it the green and blue surf on a brilliant sunny day, or angry, boiling waves during a raging winter storm? Do you prefer quiet coves or powerful breakers churning the sand? How about sand castles? Do you come for the rising tide or the setting sun, to marvel at whales gliding through the sea or flying in the sky? Reasons to travel the Pacific Coast Scenic Byway are as far-reaching as your imagination. This is a spectacular part of Oregon that traces the entire coastline along Highway 101, guiding you to the sea and away again, to coastal towns big and small, lowland marshes, and breathtaking overlooks. It's a long byway stretching from the mouth of the Columbia River to the California border, 363 miles in all, of some of the most unblemished, awe-inspiring seascapes you'll find anywhere. In addition to its designation as a scenic byway, Highway 101 in Oregon also has been selected as an all-American road. That means when you come here, you will experience one of only 31 roads considered to be the best of the best in America.
You know, when people come to the Oregon coast, they're really astonished how beautiful it is, and what separates it from many of the other places in North America that are coastal is how undeveloped it is. And that's because Oregon had a very far-sighted land use program back in the 1970s. We have all these wonderful state parks along the scenic byway that are perfect places to stop and enjoy nature in a relatively unspoiled way.
From the north, you begin in Astoria, the first permanent European settlement in the Pacific Northwest. It's a genuine maritime community with ship traffic from around the world seeking harbor up the Columbia. The official State Maritime Museum of Oregon sits here on the river. Beautiful Victorian houses dot the hillside. And standing 600 feet above sea level is the 125-foot Astoria Column. It features a hand-painted spiral frieze that would stretch over 500 feet if unwound. Heading south, you'll find the community of Seaside, a popular vacation spot that offers miles of public beaches, an oceanfront promenade, and a downtown core packed with restaurants, shops, and even a beach-type arcade. Cannon Beach is home to one of Oregon's most photographed natural wonders, Haystack Rock. Get your shots from the beach, or take a short drive up to Ecola State Park and look down on this 235-foot work of art. The picturesque small town is filled with art galleries, shops, and cafes. Ready for more? 10 miles to the south, this is the view from Cape Falcon. You're 700 feet above the Pacific. Here, the Pacific Coast Byway has been carved out of Neahkahnie Mountain and held in place by stone walls built in the 1930s by craftsmen in the Civilian Conservation Corps. Upon descending the mountain, the highway drifts inward around Tillamook Bay to Tillamook, the unofficial dairy capital of Oregon. The verdant valley of dairy farms in this area produces 25 million gallons of milk annually. Much of that is processed into natural cheddar cheese. And near more than 800 miles of navigable waters, Tillamook is a crossroads for North Coast recreation. From here, you owe it to yourself to veer off Highway 101 to explore the Three Capes Scenic Loop. This drive places you right at the beach, beginning with Cape Mears, home to the shortest lighthouse in Oregon. 9 lighthouses stand sentinel along Oregon's coastline. They're monuments to our maritime heritage, towering links to the past, and as much a part of the rugged Oregon coastal landscape as any offshore monolith. The Cape Mears Lighthouse was first illuminated in 1890. Oregon's oldest lighthouse is at Cape Blanco, the westernmost point in the state. It was commissioned in 1870 to aid shipping generated by gold mining and the lumber industry. The 93-foot-high Yaquina Head Lighthouse is the tallest in Oregon. Today, its automated light continues to aid navigation at the entrance to Yaquina Bay. Many of the lighthouses are open to the public. Most happen to be excellent places to view nesting seabirds and offshore sea life. Tide pools, those rocky areas between high and low tides, support unique and diverse plants and animals. Vast amounts of colorful, otherworldly creatures wait to be discovered. But walk cautiously. These organisms are tough enough to withstand the pounding surf, but are utterly vulnerable to human activity. Wildlife and sea life abound on the coast.
There are 6 national wildlife refuges along the Oregon coast. The Pacific Coast Scenic Byway bisects these refuges or goes alongside them. It provides you the opportunity to see a wide variety of abundant wildlife, including seabirds, seals and sea lions, deer and elk, and many other wildlife.
Cape Kiwanda lies at the southern end of the Three Capes Scenic Loop, near the town of Pacific City. Here you'll find a second haystack rock on the byway. Hike up the dune to marvel at stunning views of sandstone formations as they turn yellow, gold, or even red in the changing sunlight. If your timing is right, you'll spot 1 or 2 of the dory fleet sprint onto the beach after a day of fishing. How's this for a dinner setting? Restaurants along the Pacific Coast Scenic Byway accommodate just about any taste. Many serve an ocean view with every meal. Up and down the coast, you'll find seafood, of course, but don't limit yourself just because you're by the water. The Central Coast begins around Lincoln City, which is one of the larger communities on the byway. It has a reputation for being windy and was recognized by Kite Lines magazine as the best place to fly a kite in North America. It was incorporated from several small towns and as a result offers a sandy beach that is 7.5 miles long. A number of small state parks lie nestled along the ocean between Lincoln City and Newport. Stop, get out of your car, and take in the commanding views that are there, right next to your all-American road. Depot Bay boasts the world's smallest navigable harbor, 6 square acres in all. A seawall runs the length of the downtown, so everywhere you go, you're rewarded with a dramatic view of the Pacific. It's considered Oregon's whale-watching capital, with thousands making their way past Oregon each fall and spring. Fishing and whale-watching excursions regularly set sail from this little harbor. Leaving Depot Bay, you'll soon find yourself at Cape Foulweather, a basalt outcropping that looms 500 feet above the water. It was here, in 1778, British Captain James Cook first sighted the mainland of North America on the Pacific coast. A fierce storm that almost put an end to his expedition earned this rugged stretch of coastline its name. Coastal weather can change by the hour. You will find a lot of wet days, but rain can become blue sky with white clouds in an afternoon. Mist kissing the headlands burns away, or storms can last for days. Some people come for those storms. Whether you find sunbursts of happiness or cloud cover like a quilt, there's always a reason to come back. Like Lincoln City, Newport is one of the larger towns on the byway. The historic bayfront on the north side of Yaquina Bay hosts one of Oregon's largest commercial fishing fleets. It has a busy, genuine working waterfront feel, with fish plants and boats coming and going from as far away as Alaska. On the south side of the bay is the Oregon Coast Aquarium. Share waters beneath the ocean with sharks and rays. And don't miss the sea otters at mealtime.
Now, all 4 of our otters were rescued otters. They were found out in the wild.
For the next 50 miles, your trip along Highway 101 hugs the coast. Many more state parks offer opportunities to stop and take in outstanding vistas, crashing waves, and offshore rock formations. 2 small towns of note are Waldport and Yachats. Waldport sits on Alsea Bay, where fishing, clamming, and crabbing are popular. The 40-mile stretch south of Waldport marks steep headlands, jagged volcanic outcrops, and jaw-dropping scenery, the rugged edge of the Oregon coast. Yachats is a quiet, unhurried artist town just a couple of miles north of Cape Perpetua. Drive to the top of this bluff, and you'll be 800 feet above the water. On a clear day, you can see 70 miles of Oregon coastline. Drive past Heceta Head Lighthouse to the Sea Lion Caves. A quick elevator ride 200 feet down puts you in America's largest sea cave, the year-round home of wild stellar sea lions. Rugged cliffs give way to graceful beaches as you approach Florence. In the spring, be on the lookout for wild rhododendrons along the roadsides. Similar to Newport, you'll find an historic Old Town commercial district along the Siuslaw River. Florence is the gateway to the Oregon Dunes National Recreation Area, a 47-mile sandbox of wind-sculpted sand dunes towering 500 feet above sea level. These are the largest expanse of coastal sand dunes in North America. Reedsport is at the center of the Oregon Dunes. But you can do more than ride a dune buggy or motorcycle. A short 3 miles east of town on Highway 38, more than 100 Roosevelt elk reside at the Dean Creek Elk Viewing Area. Early mornings or just before dusk are the best times to photograph the herd. Paying homage to Oregon's timber heritage, Reedsport hosts an annual Chainsaw Sculpting Championship, a time to watch three-dimensional artwork come to life right before your eyes. Mountains of sand continue at Winchester Bay. You'll also find an active marina here. It's a great place to try your hand at crabbing or take a charter for salmon or bottom fishing. The dunes end and you enter the coast's largest urban area at Coos Bay. It has the deepest natural harbor between Seattle and San Francisco. Foreign vessels sail under the massive McCullough Bridge. You may have noticed, dotted along the Pacific Coast Scenic Byway are many beautiful and iconic bridges. The Megler Bridge in Astoria, Yaquina Bay Bridge in Newport, Alsea Bay Bridge in Waldport, Siuslaw River Bridge in Florence, and the magnificent McCullough Bridge in Coos Bay are works of art in their own right. Charleston is slightly off the byway at the mouth of the bay. It was once an old waterfront fishing village and has become a commercial and sport fishing center. From here, the Charleston to Bandon tour route offers another side trip off the byway. It's a wonderful way to explore a variety of natural Pacific Coast beauty in a number of settings: beaches, vistas, gardens, and more. Giant sea stacks, a tiny lighthouse, and an old town await you in Bandon. Do you like to golf? This remote area on the Oregon coast has not one, but 3 of the most stunning and challenging golf courses.
All right, we are back in September 4th. It is 11:57 a.m. Coming out of executive session, and the board is to proceed as directed from the executive session. With nothing further, this meeting is adjourned.